This program deals with devil worship and satanic beliefs. It contains explicit scenes and descriptions of violent crimes and rituals.
Americans are asking, who attacked our country?
You have declared a subliminal jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never come to the surface. The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives.
And night fell on a different world.
And Iblis is thinking, I should be getting this position, not Adam, and this guy is created from dirt.
And how does the army feel about you being head of the temple of Set?
And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but
I want you to give me power over Adam, and I want you to give me soldiers and minions and all of these things.
The people's hands had so much to gain and had such an ulterior motive for putting a position on me. We'll never let the true facts come born to the world.
And I want you to be able to give me the ability to whisper into the hearts of mankind.
And who was the grotto leader? You don't remember the name of a person who involved you in murder?
Now they speak for very high position, yeah? Yes.
Welcome back to Subliminal Jihad, episode 110. I'm your co-host, Dimitri.
I'm Khaled.
And today, we're back with more grotto questions. Once again, we're picking up the pace.
Yeah, well,
blazing through. Kind of. Blazing through the latter half of 2021's questions.
Yeah, we're on. We're definitely into the latter half. We're almost to August 2021 in our question backlog. So that's good.
Truly, I don't even remember.
Some of these
exactly
here are
what was
from
going
August,
on.
so we might get to some August questions today. Yeah. Well.
We do.
Yeah.
We do have.
Well, the acolytes can, look back and see if they still care about these topics they brought up back then. Hopefully they do. Maybe we'll have more insight than we would have at the time. So in a way, it might be good.
Maybe it might be better that way. And actually, I don't know. I feel like we fleshed out some adjacent fields like related to some of these questions probably since last summer. I think we'd already done our Eagles episode and Laurel Canyon. Had we done Laurel Canyon by August? I forget.
I think so. I feel like Eagles was around August that we did it. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyway.
But we'll see. We'll see. We'll jump in. We got 10 questions slotted today. Hopefully we'll get to them all.
That's usually what we have slotted. But slotted. Yeah. Okay. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I'll read the first one. This is from Monty on July 29th of last year. They ask, was the Something Awful forums an op? A lot of sus, all caps, characters, parentheses, Brown Moses, Brace, Vile Rat, Felix, all of Weird Twitter, the original 4chaners, 90% of the Grotto, are current or former Something Awful posters. What's the deal?
Yeah, I never was like a Something Awful poster. You'd think that it would be like something that the people I know who were Something Awful posters, I'm thinking of like Tom and Don, like I feel like they have a much more like honed sense of irony than I have. Even though I did go on 4chan a lot, I think that
you did. I remember. I think back when I first met you in the late 2000s, you were the first person maybe to ever tell me about B.
Yeah.
And 4chan.
I remember us, I think, going on B. Just
because I remember there was it was the first actually. It was like the first popping up of Anonymous, and they were going after Scientology. Yeah. Did you go to that?
A cringe thing about me is that I went to in New York the first protest outside Scientology, op-chanology. I was at that, and it was as lame as you would imagine. I
remember you saying at the time it was very lame.
Yes, the people there were lame. I think someone said "You, sir, are amazing," out loud, to somebody.
Wow, that's exciting.
That was
I was always aware of Something Awful, I think probably from the time I was in middle school, because I used to go on E-Bombs World and God, what were the other ones? There were there was a handful of those types of websites. On the crazier
awful.
edge, there was rotten.com.
Rotten.com. Yeah, I remember people going on that when I was in high school. Encyclopedia Dramatica, I feel like, was kind of like...
That was the other big one. And I think you were the one who first showed me Encyclopedia Dramatica many years ago. Like, again, probably around the time of Project Chanology.
Yeah, I think so.
So I was like always aware of kind of like this hacker 4chan kind of
quote unquote
culture
hacker.
in those years.
Yeah, like they were like, of course, a lot of those people were called hackers just for like being mean online or like, trolling or using pseudonyms. Like when, there were not like actual like, they were hacksaws, but they weren't like hackers. For the most part. Yeah.
Most part. But then, there were some figures that are still kind of lurking around today. People like Weave, that were involved in like these early kind of prankish hacking things and involved on all these forums that then went on. Like now he's like, I don't know, like embedded in the trenches of like Donbass or something, like DDoSing like Russian fighter jets. Like I don't know what the fuck he's doing right now, but he's a Nazi and he's like somewhere in Eastern Ukraine. And he was one of the co-creators of Encyclopedia Dramatica, which also like definitely was like a cauldron of some of the most like toxic internet culture of like the late 2000s and like 2010s, right?
I was just going to Weave's Wikipedia article just to see if I could, see an update on what he's doing now. The first thing that comes up when you Google him. And I just was, scrolling as at the bottom, and my eye was caught by the sentence. He, quote, unequivocally supported the killing of children. All right.
Yep. Exactly. And Sherrod DeGrippo was the other founder of that, who is now the vice president. I saw somebody just posted the other day about them. The vice president of threat research and detection at a company called Proofpoint now. I feel like they ended up like working in some kind of like national security. Oh yeah, this it's a she, so not like Sherrod Brown, but wow, she was named PR spokesperson of the year in 2021. Isn't that amazing? And is like a cybersecurity like expert, and Weave is a Nazi who everybody was friends with until like 2015.
Right.
But
the DDoS woman just this week, right, was being implicated for her friendship with Weave or giving him IRC server space. At
Who
some
was?
Point. The woman from DDoS? I forget what it stands for. Like
Emma Best.
Yeah, Emma Best.
Oh yeah, she's got that thing going on with Barrett Brown right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're fighting.
Very
and
mysterious, like
in the course of their fight.
feud.
A distributed
known what to
denial of
think.
secrets. So distributed denial of service is what DDoS usually means, but in this case it stands for it's like a WikiLeaks type thing. Okay. Right. Anyway, something awful.
Something awful. Was, I guess it was created in 1999, and that makes sense. I would have heard about it like around that time. It was founded by Richard Kiyonka, aka Lotax,
who I think he
died
actually changed
last
his
year.
name to Lotax, right? Like legally.
Oh, I guess he did.
So I thought so anyway.
And I mean the Monty is correct that like when you look at the kind of the lineage of like something of regular something awful posters, there is a bizarre aspect of like this is like the troubadour of the internet or something. Like this is the Laurel Canyon of the internet. It's like everybody who ended up having like a really big like Twitter irony account or like a really big podcast or like a dirtbag left superstar. Drill was on there. Like really like the kind of first the 1.0 version of like all of like the weird Twitter humor, which now is almost kind of like, I feel like seeped into the groundwater of like all Twitter to varying degrees. Like it's not just the weird Twitter people from Something Awful or FYAD or FYAD, whatever they call it. That was a like fuck yourself and die, right?
Yeah.
That was the particular sub forum that all of these people posted on for years.
Right. Was it fuck off and die? Was that what it was called?
Or it was FYAD.
Right. Fuck yourself and die. All right. Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess the guy who legally changed his name to Lotax was Brian Anthony Looper. Maybe there's a synchronicity there. I got them confused. He was the one who murdered his election opponent in Tennessee. He changed his name from Brian Anthony Looper to Brian Lotax Looper. And then he murdered the incumbent Tennessee state senator, Tommy Burks. So that's another Lotax.
Okay.
But I guess Richard
tribute,
Kiyonka didn't
guess?
actually change his name. I don't know why. Got them confused. I mean, they're both named Lotax. Not a lot of Lotaxes out there.
No, it seems.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could be, if you're like a passionate libertarian candidate, then your nickname would be Lotax, I guess.
He chose Lotax in honor of Brian Lotax Looper. Actually.
Oh, okay. So he did do it in honor of him.
Mm-hmm,
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm,
Okay. Well, interesting. But yeah. Okay. Just to correct myself, it's the "fuck you and die" forum.
Oh, that
Fayed.
makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Drill did come from there. Yes. All weird Twitter.
That was kind of like the B of something
Yes.
awful, sort of like the most intense and like depraved part. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I did not know this, but Moot, who is the founder of 4chan,
of course, yes. Mm-hmm.
used to hang out on Something Awful.
Yeah.
Before he started 4chan.
Yeah, that makes sense. Too.
Yeah. And there were like other websites that were I remember kind of a little bit in like the orbit. Remember like Fark.com and Dig with two Ds?
I remember Dig with two Ds, but Dig, that was more like Reddit to me.
It was kind of like Reddit, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't hardcore.
Fark was kind of like Reddit too.
Awful. Reddit is like basically a term of abuse on 4chan, or has been for a long time. I don't know if that's the case on Something Awful too. I mean, I don't know if probably calling things Reddit is like starting to become a bit Reddit, but you know, that's the way with all things. First is tragedy, then is Reddit. But
yes, exactly. But you know, are they sus? I remember years ago, like a lot of people, like I remember like Crypto Cuttlefish used to post about this kind of a lot, and talk about like the Fayed burnouts that like became like all of the scions of like the dirtbag left, like after Trump and everything like that. And there were always a few like factoids that people would point to when you say like, well, wait, what's sus about, Something Awful, or, this particular forum. And there was one thing that I always found to be a little bit like, and that is that there was a regular poster there named Vile Rat, who Monty mentioned. And Vile Rat is one of the 4 American contractors that he was a State Department employee who died at Benghazi in 2012. It was Sean Smith, right? I think he was like an IT worker for the State Department who was with the ambassador and as dramatized in the Michael Bay epic 13 Hours. He died basically in the Benghazi ambush.
Yeah, I remember seeing his picture.
Exactly. So I mean, that was kind of like a weird,
he was a
surreal.
Mod. Wow, they lost a mod.
Wow, he was a mod. Yeah. So people would point to that like everybody was hanging on this forum all day with like some spooked out like quote unquote State Department guy that ended up getting killed at like a weird CIA weapons base in Benghazi. There's just so much like weird shit around like the Benghazi incident at all, and the fact that there definitely were like special forces, like military contractors, like CIA people, like all over the place there. And I mean, I will say though that I think You Can't Win did a kind of a Something Awful retrospective after Lotax died last year, and I listened to it, and it was highly informative, and it shed a little more context and light on kind of the culture of the forum, and made me rest a little easier that Tom and Don in fact are not like Canadian intelligence or whatever.
Well, Tom is American intelligence.
You're right. Tom
Only
is
Don
American.
is Canadian intelligence, but that's not
true.
Really a threat to anyone.
No, but I find I can trust them pretty well when they're talking about things. When they're posting, all bets are off. But when they were talking about knowing Vile Rat and how crazy it was, when he ended up dead and just how bizarre that was, and I don't think he really talked about necessarily like where he was or what he was doing on that forum. Though 4chan does have a kind of a history of like military people could be LARPing, obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
probably
both
often are.
forms have have had mass shooting incidents. Like, I think 4chan more so, and then later I think 8chan became like the go-to place to post when you're about to do a mass shooting.
Yeah,
but
like
I think that there was at least
Christchurch. That was Facebook. That was Facebook and 8chan, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't quite remember, but where he posted.
But
I think
they
on
mentioned
one of
that
those
there, because this was the early 2000s when they were on this forum, that there were a lot of like military contractor kind of computer type guys that hung out on that were like stationed in like Iraq or something like that, when the war was like at its peak. Which, I mean, at a certain point, like that was the internet in the 2000s. That was almost like the first time that you could be communicating with people that were like in a war zone that were just kind of chilling. Like, I remember I knew somebody from high school who, I think, my freshman year of college, like he IM'd me one day. And I had heard a rumor that he joined the Marines, but I didn't believe it. I thought like somebody was like yanking my chain or something. This kid was like a big metalhead, and I didn't peg him as like a Marine type, but he like, IM'd me and was like, yo dude, like I'm in Baghdad right now, or like I'm in Tikrit or something like that. And I'm like, what? And he was telling me all this fucked up shit. And I didn't believe him because I just thought like, dude, there's no way you're like IMing me from Iraq right now. And then like that summer I saw somebody and they're like, oh yeah, dude, like he shipped over there, like he's like a sniper or something like that. Like it was
weird.
But he was saying, yeah, like I've seen so many dead bodies, and like he was telling me some really dark shit, and I was like, okay man, okay, sure you are. Like I thought he had told me some crazy stories in the past that were like seemed like tall tales, but I guess you could be a soldier, right, and just be on something awful all day, like in between patrols. And like nowadays you can just like do TikToks when you're like going out to the front lines. But I don't know, like, are they sus? I mean, all of these websites are sus, like,
yes,
ultimately.
In a way, it's like, I mean, I don't really know like too much about low taxes back. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, is Moot sus? I feel like low tax might be more sus than Moot just by virtue of, I mean, I guess it was a reference to that other insane man, so I don't know. But I find it odd to go by low tax in general. It sounds like some kind of weird, but anyone who's like a form administrator, like an administrator of one of these things, I mean, a lot of times they hate like the forms that they have to preside over. I think that was definitely the case, like for most of those people. But I mean, you have to be kind of an eccentric person to create something like this and to preside over it. And like, but in a way, like,
definitely.
I feel like what's primarily sus about it is like just the general, like, sort of function of the internet in a way. In fact, you could argue it's less sus than like just Twitter is. I think that like, in a way, it's like more of like an inchoate form. There's this level of anonymity, but it kind of is the groundwork or the foundation that moves eventually towards something like Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is indelibly influenced by these other kind of online communities. Like when you started to see like weird Twitter pop up, like that was a thing where I feel like probably around like 2015, 2016, I would start to see all these accounts that later would go on to be like the Chapo, like Bernie Bro, like type, or like Come Town or something. It's like, who's this like Nick Mullen guy everyone keeps talking about? You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, oh, I wasn't on something awful, so I just sort of like was not paying attention to like any of that, and like that sensibility of humor. Like, I mean, eventually you do stumble upon somebody like Drill, but it's still kind of like, I'm not quite getting like the glee that people are getting out of this, like just like typing like, with like 3 commas and saying my dude all the time. Like, it's just like,
I don't know. I feel like that's almost like a little bit like, I mean, yeah, like I feel like that's almost like the level of like being derivative, I guess, of like I feel like the people who rose to the top, like in that environment, did have a little bit of idiosyncrasy to them, but then they became a certain style. But I mean, just like the way that people interact, like, I mean, there's a different tenor to it. And again, like I was never on something awful, so I don't like truly know. And I would not like, I wasn't about to like go on there now to like investigate and say like I got an impression of it. I mean, the way that people interact like on 4chan, I definitely can see it's different because you do have like a name associated with your account. You can't like you're not constantly anonymous. People don't like post agreeing with themselves. It doesn't have the same level of chaos, perhaps.
And I think
the
that ports over to
turnover-
Twitter very easily. That you are like a known quantity and can kind of migrate it over and
and the rift between like anons and non-anons and blue checks and things like that. I feel like in some ways parallels like the sort of what they used to be called trip F words, trip F.
Oh
swear.
that's right.
Everything on 4chan, basically like any kind of attribute one could have, like came with that attached to it at the time. And I mean, not at the time. I say at the time, but like if I went on there now, probably still. But but you can definitely see how like just the mode of interaction that bubbled up from like those places, those more kind of chaotic environments, like has become mainstream and even bleeds its way over into like older forms of media like cable news, where like a lot of the time now they just like read tweets and things like that. And I don't know if that's good. I feel like that's maybe
probably
a sus
not.
thing.
Well, we eventually had like the president of the United States for 4 years was he became
poster.
something.
He was poster.
Yeah, shit poster. He became a shit poster. Like he was absolutely a shit poster, and that's kind of where the energy came out of. And to some degree, it's like understandable because it does cut through the kind of fake, sanctimony or virtue signaling or whatever, like basically by shit posting and making a mockery of and being so hard to decode, like wearing such a shield of irony that it's impossible to tell like to what extent you're ever being serious, which is can be a helpful thing on the internet where people can be quite vicious and like cruel and everything. So it's very understandable that people would kind of I don't know, adapt in that way. And this was like a petri dish.
Mean, like not really based on any kind of like system for determining like what, like, no real system beyond like a rhetoric for determining like what has value or like pithiness or like is maybe the sort of salient criterion. But I mean, it was, I think that bringing up Trump is interesting because, I mean, again, we can't speak super well to something awful, but I think this is in some way really, just the way he would like retweet shit, like he would retweet like insane, like I remember one day, I noticed that he like, it came to my attention that he retweeted just like 3 like totally nuts, like anti-Muslim like videos like in a row. Like just like from like some like nuts like UK group or whatever, something like that, like an Act for America type thing or like an EDL, and just like it was just like a blitz of videos like that. It's like this is so like destabilizing. Like you have no idea like who, like why, like I mean you guys like know why he did this, but like how serious is he about this? Like like what indication should we take from this? Like is like it's just like very destabilizing, I think, in general. I think that we're witnessing, like, in many ways, like the beification of like our entire political culture.
I think you have to blame the internet at the core. like it's ultimately the internet is almost like like constructed in this way to turn people.
Yeah, these forms were like, and Twitter now, it has kind of the it kind of has the worst of both worlds in some way, because it has the aspects of the sort of chaotic aspects and the aspects that I think like are sort of a hindrance to any kind of like productive interaction. And the same goes for like most forms of like social media and all the sort of things that plug into Twitter, like any Substack, like our whole discourse, like everything is like shorter and shorter and shorter. Everything is like in this kind of like weird web of impressionistic associations. But I think that these things consolidated because it was a natural shape for the internet to take. Those were like the sort of first kind of consolidations. I mean, IRC was like that too, and it really was like, I mean, I know that there maybe like I feel like it was kind of like and I think this probably does apply to something awful. It certainly applies to 4chan. There are elements of like kind of like a boy culture, where everyone's like
a
picking on
nerd
each
culture.
other. Yeah, like or just even like even though a lot of the, like, maybe this ties into some of the remarks we've had about like sort of this sort of stunting of development that we witnessed like in recent generations. But, I feel like it was almost like a replay in some ways of like the kind of hazing that you see like in elementary and middle school, like just like the ritualized bullying, or, I mean, I guess you can see that type of thing in college too, like in fraternities or whatever, but that was kind of the form that it took. And now, yeah, they're saying Twitter kind of has the worst of both worlds, in that it has like that weird chaotic element where everything's in the sort of impressionistic web, but also it has like sort of like weird like authoritarian like elements, like the Jannies like reign supreme on Twitter in a way they never did on 4chan, and like everything like gets labeled as being like BBC doesn't get labeled, but like RT does and things like that. Are you sure you want to click on this link? Like it may contain like misinformation, or something, like things like that. So yeah, it's like a weird, but I think that they're definitely in a genealogy for sure. I think that the next thing will be, I don't think this will be the next thing. I don't know why I said that, but I perhaps down the line, it will be not like a matter of just like, I wonder if people are going to find a way somehow. It was just a thought that occurred to me when I was seeing that thing that was like a sort of metaverse Walmart where you like go shopping. Like, I don't know what the purpose of this would be or why you would want to like virtually walk around like a store and like pick things out from shelves. Like what advantage that has over like just shopping online. But for every reason they were like, look at what we can do. And with the person like walking, it was like basically an FPS of Walmart. And I was like, at some point, you're not even going to be like posting on these things that you're going to go commit a mass shooting. You're just going to be straight up like finding some way to get like, like a needler or like the golden gun into the Walmart app. And like, just that's going to be like the new, internet.
And virtually, well, how do you kill people unless they have Neuralinks and it's like the Matrix where like if you die in the Matrix, you die in real life?
I don't know. Maybe it'll just be like a form of harassment. Where like,
That's true. Yeah, that could be a new form of trolling. Because at a certain point, like it becomes like a virtual experience where you get like killed by a mass shooter. That is kind of traumatic, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely. Especially if you're wearing like an Oculus Rift or whatever, or a Neuralink, then it would be like, if it were like the Matrix, then definitely you would be in danger.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, yeah. Well, I'd say, I think all these platforms are also like infiltrated from the very beginning. I forget. I think it was 4chan that had like one of the people that helped set it up had worked for the Department of Energy. And there was like a weird connection with kind of, because they have some kind, I mean, if you talk about, Q clearance is Department of Energy for nuclear stuff. So were there always like intelligence kind of operatives like lurking on those boards and playing psychological games with people, and like to what extent have, you know what I mean, like to what extent does the Air Force have like a server room like full of airmen like clicking on image board websites, like just like keeping the racism levels at a nice ambient temperature and guiding the culture in certain ways.
I'm sure that there are like feds on 4chan. Again, I don't really know something awful. I think it's a bit different. Like there probably are like, at least one who has been on there. But I mean, I feel like 4chan became a bigger phenomenon. Like we know at least about Valorant, but I mean, I think like after the attention that 4chan got after 2016, like I'm sure that there's, I don't know like how big the room is, but I feel like there definitely is like a room of people clicking like on websites like that. If not 4chan, like then at least like 8chan, probably still 4chan. Because people. I mean,
they're a little past their peak. I feel like in certain ways, but they're kind of
their edginess has faded a bit. But they're still people still post their mass shooting manifestos on 4chan just to ensure like the greatest reach. So
yes, exactly. It's part of the whole brand at this point.
Came upon a child of God. He was walking along the road. are stardust. We are golden, and we got to get ourselves back to the Then can I walk beside you? I have come here to lose the smog, and I feel to be a cog in something turning. Well, maybe it is just the time of year, or maybe it's the time of man. I don't know who I am, but you know life is for learning. We are stardust. We are golden, and we got to get ourselves back to the By the time we got to Woodstock, we were 500,000 strong, and everywhere there was song and celebration. And I dreamed I saw the bombers riding shotgun in the sky, and they were turning in to butterflies above our nation. We are stardust, billion-year-old carbon. We are golden, caught in the devil's bargain, and we got to get ourselves back to the
Should we move on to number 2?
All right. Yeah.
Want to read it?
All right, Young Howler asks, the recent Woodstock 99 discourse has me really wanting to dig into the susness of Woodstock 69. Obviously, lots of ties to the Laurel Canyon scene, but are there any good resources out there that really delve into the darker aspects of the OG Woodstock? I don't know. I would be interested to do an episode about Woodstock, because I know that Woodstock was very sus. I'm not sure if there's a good book dedicated to the susness of Woodstock.
Yeah, like a McGowan type book.
Yeah.
I think it really does merit a deep dive into all the players that kind of made it happen, and then also the representation of it afterwards, which a lot of people have said, that the documentary that was made about Woodstock, that was a huge hit, really cemented this romantic view of what it was. But if you zoomed out, if you were actually there, or if you just looked at what actually happened there were a lot of messy elements of it, and I think at least a few people died, or got airlifted back to a hospital and stuff, and they had a lot of logistical problems, and people were freaking out on all kinds of drugs, and there probably were sexual assaults.
Yeah,
it's interesting that Young Haller puts this in the context of Woodstock 99. Now, for this question, I went back and watched the documentary, which must have just come out after Young Haller asked this question, Woodstock 99, Peace, Love, and Rage, which is a pretty interesting documentary. It's a fun and scary kind of ride through that that very sus music festival from 1999, which like I remember like watching it as like a middle schooler, and by the beginning I was like so bummed out that like I was too young to like go to like Woodstock 99 and see Limp Bizkit. But by the end of it, it was like, oh shit, like everyone just burned everything down, and it was like there was like mass rapes during like Limp Bizkit playing break stuff. Honestly, like going back and watching it, you're like, oh, like Astroworld vibes. Like this. It's the same thing. It's like people were talking like when Fred Durst was playing break stuff, and it's the equivalent of like Travis Scott being like, oh, and like doing the robot as like they're like passing, you know, unconscious bodies in front of him. And it's like that. It's like, I just want everybody, like if you got some rage, like you're fucking pissed off at your boss, you got boy problems, you got girl problems, I want you to take all the negative energy, you know, while they're like, you know, they're like getting ready to like blow. And then, you know, when you said, you know, I want to break your fucking face tonight, and then they, you know, the big drop happens, like it's just like, yeah, there was such bad energy, and, you know, like they played like DMX, you know, DMX gave a great performance, but showed this like sea of white kids just like so excited to like yell like the N-word and like call and response with him, which, you know, didn't age well. And all that stuff, but there are a few things that are interesting about Woodstock 99. Like it was held on a retired military base, like on an Air Force base, which, you know,
Woodstock
a few people,
99 was?
Yeah, Woodstock 99. So they moved it to Rome, New York, which is like nearby Woodstock or whatever town that was, and it was like on this decommissioned Air Force base, which they thought their real advantage of it was that it was fenced off all the way around, so they couldn't have gate crashers. But it had all these like problems because it was all like hot asphalt and shit. And so like that was kind of a weird vibe thing. And I mean, you know, the original Woodstock was not on an Air Force base, but
it was on a hog farm, which I find to be interesting because, you know, wasn't there another hog farm connection? Wasn't like Wavy Gravy's camp like next or called the hog farm or something?
I feel like Wavy Gravy's
the hog farm.
Yeah, I feel like Wavy Gravy did have it was next to Camp Win a Rainbow,
Hog
right?
Farm, yes. It was an organization considered America's longest running hippie commune called the Hog Farm, yes, and it was right next to Camp Win a Rainbow.
Did he end up calling it the Hog Farm like because of Woodstock?
Well, it's best known for their involvement with Woodstock, right? So
I see. Okay, so they were in Manhattan's East Side in 1968 and 69. They were approached by Woodstock Ventures with the proposal for a festival. They had just bought land in Llano, New Mexico, and had plans to depart New York and settle in their new home, but they agreed to work on Woodstock, and they were in charge of security at Woodstock.
Yeah, but Woodstock was actually like on a hog farm, wasn't it? Or like
no, it was. I'm pretty sure.
Despite them. So yeah, it's weird that they were like called the hog farm. Maybe it was after the fact that they like became the hog farm, but I don't know if that is the case. Like,
it's a little unclear.
Did they like worship pigs or something? Were they truly that haram that they were like, we need to have this like in the vicinity of pigs? Okay, it was on a dairy farm. So that's different.
Okay.
Yeah, Woodstock 69 was on a dairy farm, but the hog farm was involved in it. Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. I will throw out, because we probably have to do like a full deep dive to like really get into the susness of original Woodstock. But I found a couple things, you know, to whet the appetite until we circle back around. I didn't realize this, but I found a couple articles on taskandpurpose.com, you know, one of those like military websites. And it says that time the Army had to save a bunch of hippies at Woodstock. And I had actually never heard about this, but if you watch the documentary and stuff, you see all of these Army Huey helicopters coming in and out throughout the entire weekend. So apparently, like, if it hadn't been for the U.S. Army, Woodstock would have like completely collapsed into like a huge clusterfuck, like disaster, because so many more people went. I think they expected 200,000 and like 400,000 came. And so they had like food, water concerns, like all kinds of various supplies. There actually were a number of booths that got burned down at Woodstock 69. So because vendors started inflating their prices once the shortages began. So it's like you actually did have kind of a lot of the same problems that you ended up having at like Woodstock 99. And so there was there was a Sheriff Lewis Ratner said, it's like you get a certain feeling there that something isn't right. So we got permission to get Army helicopters flown by Stewart Air Force pilots, and we already had them that morning. When that thing broke, I had the helicopters on the way. Though Woodstock didn't frame itself as an anti-war protest. Interesting, once again. Like you'd think they did frame themselves as an anti-war protest, right? Like it's fucking Woodstock. It's interesting that they're just like, no, it's just like about good vibes. Like, how radical. Anyways, the festival took place during the height of the Vietnam War, and with the counterculture music scene closely aligned with the anti-war movement, the sight of incoming U.S. Army helicopters conjured up images of American militarization. So John Morris, the production coordinator for Woodstock, was on stage when the hellos came in. It was like a wave, he said. You could see people start to look up. And all I said was, ladies and gentlemen, the United States Army. And you could feel it and you could hear it, the tension. Medical Corps. And the crowd broke into a cheer that was just fantastic. And just about then, you see the red crosses on the side. Oh, how cool. A good guy army just saving the hippies. So they airdropped more than 10,000 sandwiches in addition to canned goods, water, fruit, medical supplies, and blankets to the ill-supplied crowd. Refreshed and refitted, the party raged on until August 18th, a full day longer than it was supposed to run. And the festival rounded out its set list with Jimi Hendrix's iconic rendition of the national anthem, Fitting. And that's the end of the article. Fitting indeed, right? Interesting. So it sounds like the Army was doing a little PSYOP work, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's sus that I always thought it was sus that they were giving they were like brown acid pills, like just being handed out, and they were like, extremely intense. I mean, I guess there were like multiple different kinds of like brown acid, like some that were like too good and some that were like, didn't work at all or whatever.
Wasn't there also brown acid at at Altamont?
I don't know. Maybe there
wasn't that the rumor that there was bad acid going around, which created like bad vibes,
was
like
it
the Hells
brown?
Angels.
I know that the brown one is very strongly associated with Woodstock. Wavy babies like, don't take the brown acid.
They had announcements like on the PA system.
Yes.
Like, don't. Oh my God.
And then they
little
had to
brown
walk
pill.
back and say like, well, it's not poison, but it's just not very good or whatever. And then they're like, actually, there is some that is poison. Yeah, it seemed like a whole mess. I mean, they did have like the whole CIA gang was in attendance. They had the Grateful Dead.
That's true. Yeah. They had. It actually, it's almost like kind of notable, like how many people didn't go to Woodstock rather than like how many people did. I'm just gonna see the lineup right now. Like, it was so similar to Altamont.
I guess Led Zeppelin wasn't there. James Taylor wasn't there.
Bob Dylan wasn't there. The Doors, I don't think were there. So they had Richie Havens, Sweetwater,
Beach
Ravi
Boys weren't
Shankar,
there.
Joan Baez, Arlo Guthrie, Country Joe McDonald. He did some anti-Vietnam stuff. Santana, Canned Heat, Grateful Dead.
The Rolling Stones weren't there either.
No, they weren't. Yeah, Creedence, Janis Joplin, Sly and the Family Stone, The Who, Jefferson Airplane, Joe Cocker, Country Joe and the Fish, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and then three bands on the final extra day. Jimi Hendrix closed it. So pretty heavy lineup. You had all this acid going around, and I think that it's interesting because you would have to ask, like, what is the advantage to? It's a little easier to see the advantage of the nefarious like MK Deep State fucking up Altamont and kind of or like the Manson murders, like slamming the door on 60s optimism, but just a couple months before, like just before Altamont, right, was Woodstock.
Yeah.
Like they were only a few months apart from each other.
Yeah, maybe it was a testing ground for their acid that they used, or if there actually was bad acid present at Altamont. I read like a really hilarious description. Maybe it was on Arrowhead of like what it was like to take the bad acid at
Oh yeah, there is an
Woodstock.
Arrowwood article about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
LSD, Arrowwood Exp, the infamous Woodstock brown acid.
Yeah, I remember that being like an interesting. Oh yeah, actually, I think this is what I was thinking of. It's like in Mel magazine, and it's like what it was like to take the brown acid. The brown acid was given to me by an older woman. Well, to 18-year-old me, she seemed old. She was probably in her 40s. Anyway, she came up and gave me a loaf of bread because I was hungry and some acid. It wasn't, though, what they called blotter acid, which is a piece of paper that you chew. It was a brown pill, and I took it later that morning. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday were all pretty mellow for me. I got stoned those 3 days, but I hadn't tripped at all. It was only when that woman gave me the acid that it turned into a fucking carnival. Right after I took it, Neil turned to me, it was just someone who was there with her, and goes, I'm going to find a phone booth to call our moms and tell them that we're all right. The news was saying Woodstock was declared a disaster area. There wasn't enough food or water and that it was all mud. Basically, that it was a total clusterfuck. But Neil and I were having a wonderful time. So I just said, yeah, good idea. And can you have your mom call my mom, please? Neil sauntered off, and I'm in our usual spot waiting for Joe Cocker when the brown acid starts hitting. I thought Joe Cocker was the greatest thing I'd ever seen in my life, especially because it seemed like he wouldn't end his song with a little help from my friends until every single person at Woodstock stood up and gave him a standing ovation. Of course, my time was a little altered, but it felt like that lasted for 6 hours. At the end of his set, I was peaking and it was awesome. I remember thinking, this is the strongest fucking acid I've ever taken in my life. But then everything went black, like it was the middle of the night. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I thought I was hallucinating. Everybody was pointing up to the sky. Then they made an announcement about stopping the concert. This big storm was coming through. Hold on to your neighbor, they told us. But I don't have a neighbor, I thought. Neil was gone and I started to panic. My heart began beating and I had to go to the bathroom. Suddenly, I felt like I was surrounded by new people who weren't as friendly as the people there before. They were sort of looking down their nose at me like they were fresh in from the suburbs, well-dressed and all this. And there I was in some shorts and a t-shirt for 3 days. I hadn't brushed my teeth. I felt like a scumbag. The bread was gone, too, because I'd scarfed it down in about 5 minutes. Who are all these new people, I thought? And why is everyone being so standoffish? Then their faces started melting off, and it wasn't fun anymore. Yeah. And,
Wow.
then it was a monsoon. I guess this person made it out okay, but it does sound like a bit of a nightmare. Yeah,
it was
just blacking
messy.
out for 6 hours and then pointing up at the sky. Everyone just pointing up at the sky. Yeah.
Well, a lot of people did say, it was kind of messy and miserable by the end, and the documentary just kind of washed all that away and made it this wonderful.
And who is this
idyllic
40-year-old
festival.
woman giving an 18-year-old girl a brown pill? What?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know. But I do get the feeling that between that and the army being so friendly to go supply shit to all these draft dodging fucking hippies that are dropping acid, and it's just yeah, no problem. We'll help. We always love to help. Do they? I think they talked to one of the pilots that did it. They just thought it was neat. Yeah, Clark Stahl was a 23-year-old warrant officer who had recently returned from Nam. He was hanging out at West Point and then got a, quote, pretty sweet gig. His commanding officers just came in and said, would you be available on Friday and during the weekend to provide medical aid and resupply for a rock festival? We kind of looked at each other and said, what the hell is a rock festival? Of course, we knew nothing about Woodstock. It was explained to us that there'd be a lot of big names, and they didn't know how many people would end up showing up, but they expected it'd be quite a few more than they originally thought. And, of course, there were 400,000. Yeah, so they already had a plan when one of the vendors' booths was burned down overnight, one of several instances of that happening. So they came to the rescue and brought them all kinds of things to make it a functioning event. Yeah, six to a dozen sorties over the course of the concert is what they did. This is a good quote. I knew I found. Okay. Yeah, the pilot said, quote, they would put people or stuff on board and we would take it out there and drop it off without knowing exactly what it was, without really caring. It was all part of the effort to keep things safe and peaceful, he added. We knew they needed to get stuff in and out of there, but the main focus was on the health and safety aspect of it and making sure nobody had any injuries or medical issues, and if they did, they'd have the ability to treat them. Though Stahl was back in the States and no longer cruising over the jungles of Vietnam, in a way the mission was oddly familiar. I flew medevacs in Vietnam, so I was used to the concept of medical evacuation and help from the sky, if you will. So my mindset was that this was just a kind of a continuation of what I'd done in Southeast Asia and helping those in need on the ground. So don't ask questions, just bring supplies in and out.
I think the most like characteristic thing about Woodstock was when like Pete Townsend like smacked Abby Hoffman with his guitar for getting up on stage and like indicting everybody for being at Woodstock and not doing anything to like politically mobilize.
Interesting.
Yes.
Let me see.
What Abby Hoffman was like, he was. What was he complaining about? Oh yeah, he got up on stage while Pete Townsend of the Who, the Who, who everyone invoked to say like, well, people died at a Who concert. Are they sus too? When the Travis Scott thing was happening, yes, they are.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, but as Pete Townsend, was tuning his guitar, Abby Hoffman like rushed the stage right after the song "Pinball Wizard," the amazing song "Pinball Wizard" from the Who's Tommy. Sorry, Who fans. It's like, but anyway, so then he said, "I think this is a pile of shit." That is Abby Hoffman. While John Sinclair rots in prison. John Sinclair was the leader of the White Panther Party and manager of the left-wing hard rock band MC5, who had been convicted and sentenced to 9 years of prison because of marijuana possession. Townsend, angry that someone took the stage, yelled, fuck off my fucking stage," hit him with his guitar and sent him off stage again. Townsend then added, "I can dig it." And after the song, "Do you think it's all right?" he said, "The next fucking person that walks across the stage is going to get fucking killed," at which the crowd cheered.
That sounds like Woodstock 99.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then he said, "You can laugh. I mean it." Yeah.
Yeah, John Lennon did a song about John Sinclair. Yeah. So I guess, he tried to make it political. I mean, Abby Hoffman's like really all over the place, but, hey, when he's right, he's right. A little bit. I mean, that is the other thing that people, I think even in the Woodstock 99 documentary were saying is that, like, I feel despite what the mythology that's been built around it, it was also emblematic of the limits of the hippie kind of alternative lifestyle culture thing. Like you can just see by the fact that the U.S. Army had to come in and like save them, that it is not a naturally sustainable lifestyle to like go and just kind of like messily camp somewhere in like huge numbers and do tons of acid and just like be, they're kind of it's not the best way to organize young people in like a disciplined fashion to mobilize and do anything to challenge power or anything like that,
Yeah,
and they end up just like
be like a test population for,
and then there's
still legal LSD.
Right. Well, it was illegal by then.
Was it? Was it illegal?
Yeah, because it was made illegal in, I believe, October of 1966. So yeah, it was because the Summer of Love thing was like the acid test started before it was illegal, and then like the Summer of Love kind of happened in the few months after it was made illegal, but it was still everywhere because like Owsley Bear was making bathtubs full of it and shit like that.
But are you sure that it was? I guess maybe it was like state level, but I think it was not until '68 that it was illegal. But I guess that would have been before Woodstock anyway.
It was still before. Well, yeah, maybe it was Ronald Reagan made it illegal in California in like October of 1966. But that was definitely one turning point where it was made illegal. But then everyone's tripping out so hard in this brown acid, their minds are completely melting, and then like a Huey Army helicopter comes, but it's actually here to like bring you peanut butter sandwiches, yay! And then
wow,
yeah, good vibes. Like don't have to be mad about the war. Just yeah. So I don't know. We'll probably circle back to that.
John Sinclair played Obama's inauguration.
Really?
Performing a series of his poems, accompanied by a live band. Yeah.
Wow. Very radical. I wonder if Bill Ayers got him in there.
Radical, beat, yippee, cool.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you a personal question. How many people here really like NSYNC? Perfect. How many people here ever woke up one morning and just decided it wasn't one of those days and you're gonna break some shit? Well, this is one of them days, yo, where everything's fucked up. You just want to break some shit. You feel me? Let's feel it. It's just one of those days when you don't want to wake up. Everything is fucked, everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify ripping someone's head off. No human contact, and if you interact, you're like this on contract. Your best bet is to stay away, motherfucker. It's just one of those days. It's all about the he said, she said bullshit. I think you better quit, let shit slip, or you'll be leaving with a fat lip. It's all about the he said, she said bullshit. I think you better quit talking that shit. It's just one of those days. Feel like a freight train. First one to the plane, leaves with a blood stain. Damn right, I'm a maniac. You better watch your back, cause I'm fucking up your program. And you're stuck up, you're just locked up. That's a lot to get fucked up. Your best bet is to stay away, motherfucker. It's just one of those days. It's all about the he said, she said bullshit. I think you better quit, let shit slip, or you'll be leaving with a bad lip. It's all about the he said, she said bullshit. I think you better quit talking that shit, punk. So come and get it. Time to reach deep down inside and take all that negative energy. All that negative energy. And let that shit out of your fucking system. You got girl problems. You got boy problems. You got parent problems. You got boss problems. You got job problems. You got a problem with me. You got a problem with yourself. It's time to take all that negative energy and put it the fuck out. You feel me, Woodstock? Alright, let's bring it out. When this song kicks in, I want you to fucking kick in. You got it? I feel like shit. My suggestion is to keep your distance, cause right now I'm dangerous. We've all felt like shit and been treated like shit. All those motherfuckers who wanna step up, I hope you know a pack of chainsaw. I'll skin your ass raw. And if my day keeps going this way, I just might break something tonight. A pack of chainsaw. I'll skin your ass raw. And if my day keeps going this way, I just might break something tonight. A pack of chainsaw. I'll skin your ass raw. And if my day keeps going this way, I just might break your fucking face tonight. Give me some break. Give me some to break. Give me some to break. How about your fucking face?
I will question number 3. Walking stick. I get it. On August 1st, 2021, asked, what do people think of the idea of the epistemological crisis / collapse of consensus reality, etc.? It's a pretty lib talking point nowadays, but it seems hard to deny that something like that is happening. I don't think it's about political polarization, though. More like the technology of social control getting way too effective.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
I definitely, I agree very strongly with walk-in stick in that, I agree with both aspects of it, where I feel like, one almost doesn't want to like feed into the kind of like lib sort of panic over like the post-truth era, but I also feel like there is some kind of, this is something that's been going on for a while, like there's crisis representation, these sort of currents or tendencies, but I definitely feel that like there is a a sort of widening breach between people's different conceptions of like basic ontological and epistemological principles.
Definitely.
And I think that it is, and I agree that it is kind of a function of, technologies like social control, but almost like in a sort of a stochastic control, mechanism where it's like, control through chaos.
I mean, this is really like, going back to talking about like the net and the web. I saw somebody say on Twitter recently that like, we talk about a web as if it's like a multi-node kind of distributed network, but no,
as if
a
we
web
are the spider.
As if we're the spider, but no, we're the prey. Like it's
where we've been psyoped into taking the spider's POV on a web where like the vast majority of all non-spider entities are not at home in webs.
Exactly. Like all users are the equivalent of a fly trapped in the web. And like Silicon Valley is the spider. Mm-hmm. And I think that the technologies of social control, but I feel like that's almost a redundant phrase. Like it's just like, because the technology, it's like it truly exists, I think, to like manage social control. But I won't pick any bones with that. It is the technology of social control. Though, it's sold to us as technology for different purposes, to connect people or to make your work more efficient or to,
use
expose yourself. Yeah, every reason they give for why the technology exists, but like under the hood, it's custom car commando social control, purring all the way down,
Yeah.
I don't know, with consensus, it's even happening in like such a, like, I feel the problem with the lib kind of version of that, of like people have information silos where they only, watch Fox News or they, the problem with that is it almost like it understates like the depth of the problem, because I feel like things are so micro sliced and diced now, and
libs are also like a huge victim of it, I think. And
I don't think they acknowledge that enough.
Yes, exactly. And things are so micro sliced. It's not just like it's not about political polarization in the sense of like there being two poles, even though I won't necessarily dispute that there are. But the more like alarming thing is, like the fractalization of all these like sort of micro camps. Like that's what really, I mean, I think that it is like a phenomenon that like the rift between like the two poles politically, like in the United States, I can definitely speak to, like has become very profound, where like there's no, like the common ground is like really, I mean, obviously it's not totally unprecedented that there's been this element of polarization and a rift between these two factions, these two general factions, really like the sort of Southern bloc and like the
Cowboys and Yankees.
States. Yeah, Cowboys and Yankees, yeah.
Whatever you want to say about that binary, like it does describe the cultures of the two political parties at this point, I would say, right?
Yes.
Like that's definitely what they kind of embody publicly to themselves. Mm-hmm. Like you got Yankee Democrats and Republican Cowboys.
Yes. And
but in between, people are much more like micro sliced and diced even than that.
And on the extremes as well, like all across, like everyone is like in their own little weird encampment. And like some, I think it's kind of like, it's like, just like this hyper, like, is sort of fertile ground for like the development of like these weird, like, I think of the -48 thing, like there's always been like things like that. The guy, he was like the guy who led all those people to Dallas and was just like saying things like,
that guy. Okay.
The 185.
JFK's Jr. is going to come back.
185, Christ the King. 185, like, Trump. 185, like.
Yeah. Or Lisa Kleypier, like, I am like God is 7-Eleven. Like,
And like though, like, you know, just like I don't know if they actually do hate each other, but like those two people could like just hate each other deeply over like the intense like difference, you know, of opinion that they have about some like thing that doesn't even correspond in any way to what the average person recognizes as reality. And like there have always been things like that, you know, like Millerites and things, you know, like millenarian groups. But I think that the internet is accelerating it. You know, without a doubt.
even if you just take kind of like the so-called like radical left in the United States, like how many different factions and sects and the subdivisions like could you possibly break that into? Because I could probably like go for an hour and just like list like different factions, like the, you know, like the, you know, it's like, are you a dirtbagist Chapoist? Are you a Twitch? Are you a like a Hassan Pikerist, like Twitchist? Are you
are you a Twitchist?
Yeah. Are you a like a Vouchist? Are you now? It's become like kind of embodied by these different like influencer personalities. But I'm just thinking of like that one thing that kind of went unintentionally viral in the last week before we recorded this, of that YouTube streamer that was talking about like the problem of left-wing conspiracy theorizing. And like that's a huge fault line that we are kind of on the precipice of and engage with all the time. But people that like aren't as plugged in to like particularly that online kind of like discourse might have no idea that there's like beefs between like the Twitch streamer people that call themselves socialist and like the critical paranoid people who might call themselves socialists that are talking about like subliminal jihad. And there might be like deep epistemological disputes between these groups, even when they claim to sort of be kind of like, you know, Negative 48 and like Lisa Kleypier getting into a fight. Like from a distance, they might just look like bad shit, like right-wing maniacs. But then when you zoom in, it's like nobody can really kind of unite into, I don't know, like it seems very difficult for like a mass movement to sort of cohere. And I don't know, at the same time, like political processes always involve like debating and fighting other people. And, you know, that was going on long before the internet. But I feel like the internet adds these dynamics that just end up into like pissing contests and like fights.
And I think that it facilitates like the movement of like these like memes, you know, and these sort of like information bites that like infect people. Like it just, you know, and I'm sure that is like a phenomenon before, but I don't think that anyone would deny that like the internet like definitely like lubricates like this process. Like, you know, for like the example that you gave, like, you know, people on the left who would be like sort of denouncing the idea of conspiracy theory or talking about a conspiracy as something that is like fundamentally false, like conspiracy as a synonym for false, when, you know, which of course, you know, but that like it could present a problem to someone, to people, because they want to talk about conspiracies, which happen all the time, you know, and are like a tested historical fact. So this could lead to like, you know, a huge sort of failure, you know, and it is very much epistemic, or really like based on premises. Like they're operating from really a different definition of conspiracy, which means like crazy thing, but it's like so deeply embedded through like these like weird little like nomoi or gnomes, that gnomes in the sense of, you know, like received wisdom, or these
Mimetic
little kind
gnomes.
of like axioms, that they just like repeat, you know, like the idea like people believe in conspiracy theories because it's comforting. Something that if you think about
That
for like
one
2
was
seconds just
resurrected
collapses
this last
completely. Week. Yeah, but people just say that like without really examining it, because if you think about it for a second, it doesn't make any sense.
It's
like,
one of the more triggering arguments that people throw at you is
it
that
doesn't,
like, do you really think this is more comforting that like there are like high level networks of like intelligence backed like pedophiles? Like
a
Larry
great
King
one that I saw
around.
recently was that like people don't want to believe that like Lee Harvey Oswald shot JFK because he had a family. And that means he could be anyone. And it's like literally everybody has a family. You know, or I guess,
He
there's some people who are
defected to the
orphans,
Soviet Union and then
but,
redefected to America. Like, that's not anybody, right? It's just like, he's like hanging out with white Russian expats.
Yeah, and
like
Ted Kaczynski was an academic. So, like, it's like, oh, right, yeah, people just do not want to believe that academics could do anything wrong, and that's why they believe in conspiracies, because they're just too attached to the reputation of academics. That's really defines the community of conspiracy theorists, just academic
it's very
fans.
stupid, especially to bring it up in a left context, because like I don't know, unless you're totally hewing to like the Warren Commission, like he was a lone nut who was unstable and wanted to be famous or something like that, like you kind of are left with like, you have to kind of employ a different kind of conspiracy theory if you think like Oswald really did it and that maybe he was working for a communist country to do it, which is like always like the fake conspiracy thing they were like pretending to cover up to like save the world because they were so selfless. You know, it's like if they had to tell somebody that they were covering it up, they'd be like, look, like Castro did it, but we can't start World War III, you know, and like, wow, that's like so responsible of them. But, you know, like they would almost have to do that. And then as somebody who is like speaking for myself, who is like sympathetic to Marxism and even like 20th century, Marxist countries, then wouldn't that be more upsetting to like open up that can of worms, that like one of the most like horrific crimes against like a president who maybe, despite what Chomsky said, like wasn't like that bad and maybe wanted to end the Cold War, he was snuffed out by like the evil, conniving commies. Like they actually are as evil as like McCarthy said they were. And then wouldn't I have to like, or I'd have to embrace it and be like, it was based, like JFK was bourgeois, like he deserved to die, which is stupid because it didn't have like really a positive result in terms of like East-West relations. You know what I mean? It's just like it's at a certain point, unless you want to just accept literally everything that the media and the government and the serious like people say,
even if you believe that everything that they say, like you just said, you know, even if you believe like their insinuation of like a communist conspiracy, or even if you believe like everything that, I mean, the media doesn't really align on everything because they cleave to this sort of larger phenomenon of like this sort of binary political polarization, where like it's very funny, like sort of that both sides maybe. I mean, I guess really it's more the sort of right wing that has this very prominent theme in their rhetoric about being sort of like heterodox or working against like the elites or the establishment in some way, you know. And I guess, you know, the sort of liberal media doesn't go into that. Doesn't hit that as hard, I guess. I guess anymore. Maybe it's for like a cultural level. Yeah, I mean the left does, but not like MAGA.
But I mean, like liberals,
like Tucker
in, like, the 2000s
will like inveigh against elites, which is just like truly laughable. But this idea of like really that we have like a, you know, two pillars of, you know, two different orthodoxies, but by virtue of that, like, you know, there's different ideas. But like, you know, one orthodoxy, for instance, the right wing, they believe January 6th, you know, maybe was like cooked up by the federal government, but on the other side, like they believe that like Russia, you know, like subverted like the election in 2016, like in a very meaningful way, like actually just straight up stole it. Both of those are conspiracies. So like even if you are just going by mainstream media narratives, like, you know, those are conspiracies. Like even, you know, there's tons of things that are just like historically attested conspiracies that were denied until they were like acknowledged, you know, of an incredibly grand scale and sinister portent. But like, you know, it's really, as I was saying, like there's a new definition of conspiracy where like, you know, part of the muddying of the waters of this is sort of the perpetuation of the idea that a conspiracy is something that crazy people believe as a possibility and normal people with a materialist sense of the world don't, which is why the term parapolitics has become like in a way necessary. But parapolitics, I mean, in a way, like, yeah, it's sort of a test to the gap that still exists because, you know, we had to call it para, like
paranormal,
adjacent. Yeah, exactly. Or like aside from the normal, aside from politics, or
that's true, because if I really had my druthers, I would just call it politics. Like that, there is no separation between talking about conspiracy in history and talking about like political history. Like these are two things that always, like, one is a feature of the other. Like conspiracy is a feature of like wielding and gaining and losing political power and like managing power.
Yes. Really,
And-
it's a para discourse of politics, but it's not about any kind of like, anything that is separate from ordinary politics, like technically speaking, the mainstream, it's different from the mainstream discourse. That's what makes it para, but it's not, different from politics itself. And so, except, when like ontological differences do come into play in the way that we do talk about some topics in the show, like, if there's any kind of gin involved, then in that sense, perhaps there could be parapolitics, but because that, has different sort of ontological framing that changes politics entirely. But, that aside, most things like JFK, that's not parapolitical. It's simply political. But anyway, but we have to say that because we can't say that there was a conspiracy, even though it's a perfectly functional word, because conspiracy has come to mean, insane through like these,
illogical
psyops. Yeah, illogical, but
Occam's razor.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Occam's razor.
But I do think I think the sooner that everybody can realize that like we are all conspiracy theorists now, like that will be insane. But like I think even more insane is people that are still in denial that they are trafficking or entertaining conspiracy theories. Like, that like Russia stole the 2016 election. Like people really believe that and still do. And I'm sure some people believe that Russia like had a very big hand in like January 6th, and other things. And then on the other side, there's all these, pretty out there conspiracy theories too. But it's like everybody's kind of doing it one way or another, unless you're choosing to only believe like the Snopes verified, Zero Pinocchios, like officially approved truth, which I'm sorry, like you shouldn't be running around trusting motherfuckers like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like, I
don't
have a
like
bad time
if you do
Snopes
that
every day, but I feel like even they must like acknowledge some, like, or say certain dubious conspiracies are true. I mean, Snopes is, certainly.
But you know
not
what I mean? Like this, like unless
yeah.
somebody like there's a like a no,
you would have to literally
this
believe
didn't actually happen article, and that's the only thing they trust.
In order to like actually not believe in conspiracies, you would have to have like a totally incoherent idea of the world. Like you would have to not like, how was Julius Caesar assassinated? Like
you would have to become a conspiracy theorist in the way they mean it to basically accommodate that worldview, like to make it make sense.
It would have to be just like everything. Like people don't actually. I really can't even on the spot. I can't imagine a world where there would be no such thing as a conspiracy, like that would like cohere in any way, like or make any kind of sense. Like what would? It almost would seem like there'd have to be some kind of like other force that was capable of conspiring if human beings weren't and didn't. But
then you're back. Then you're basically at gin theory. So
then you're basically at gin theory or like reptoids or something like, or worm like parasites, controlling people.
But don't drive yourself mad because you think I don't want to be one of those deluded. That is the one thing that in this insane, hellish, trajectory of society that does feel a little nicer than maybe even like 5 years ago or 10 years ago is I feel the stigma just in like interpersonal day-to-day reactions, like interactions, like the stigma around saying, I talk about conspiracy theories. I feel like there really was a like high cost, as there was with many things where like the vibes have shifted, where like you would be looked at as like, ew, like what? That's crazy. Like, ew, I'm not into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think
or
it's
really
still the
not
case,
taken
'cause there's
seriously.
like there's a panic. There's a new sort of moral panic happening around. There's the double level moral panic where like there is a moral panic around like conspiracies that I think is happening again, but like it's not entirely unwarranted. I think that some of it is and like it can be excessive, or there can be targets that are the wrong targets or are not implicated in the way that some believe them to be, or something like that. Panic is generally, as we we recently talked about panic is generally a bad thing. No one ever wants to really be panicked. So like you can totally panic about like if there's a fire in your house, there's a reason, like, there's a legitimate cause for panic, but panicking doesn't help. You want to like calmly leave, right? So I do think that there is a panic happening about like some things that are like real, that have a real basis to them. Like, for instance, like the embedment of like sex trafficking in our government or something like that. Like the high profile pedophiles, like that type of thing. Like we see this discourse like becoming like deeply politicized, like in certain quarters. And then I also think that there's a like counter moral panic about the problem of conspiracy, like people believing in conspiracies or believing that there's pedophiles in the government, but that is true. So it becomes like a horrible bias. Yeah, exactly.
This is alarming. We need to learn how to control people better so they don't believe like these insane things like that, people in the government knew about 9/11 and stuff like that,
And like people who believe, like, like some of the beliefs of people who like truly go nuts and like hurt innocent people might like be valid, if not mainstream. Like, someone who's like truly insane might believe like in, I don't know, that like Martin Luther King, was killed by the FBI, or, and that doesn't mean that belief is like not allowed in the public discourse, but that is what the response ends up being, like to that person, like their insanity reaching out in all sorts of directions, including like, maybe even violence or, whatever, which, obviously here on the conspiracy podcast, we think is like to an extent deliberate, or at least framed deliberately. But anyway,
like the Pizzagate shooter, weirdo
perhaps.
Goes and like shoots a bullet hole in the wall, and Ketanji
exactly.
Jackson Brown throws him in jail and then gets a Supreme Court seat. No, I'm not saying that's why she got it, but it wasn't
right. Well, the whole thing about like she's been soft on like sex criminals or whatever. Like
they did go in this weird Pizzagate direction.
Yeah, which,
they stopped short of like critical support for like the Comet ping pong shooter, but
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, like, I haven't really looked into, like, how legitimate that was. It didn't seem to be, like, really, like, a real, they were bringing up all sorts of, like, bullshit. Like, she defended Guantanamo detainees or whatever, like, good. But, I mean, I'm sure she sucks in the way that, like,
she's married to a Boston Brahmin.
Okay.
And also by marriage, she is Paul Ryan's, like, sister-in-law.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that she's like not like a radical leftist or anything, or like
no,
she's
of course not.
Like, I'm sure she's like very like milquetoast and like probably like barely like
like that's a good example actually of kind of like bringing up this like kind of hinting at this like Pizzagate-y thing, but in like a very kind of disingenuous, like half-assed sort of way at the exact moment
that
when
might,
you
like,
can
I
like
don't really
score
know.
A couple political points.
Yeah, or like, is there even anything to that? Like, I don't know. Like, I like, has she been like really soft on like, sex offenders? Like,
I mean, it was a matter of degrees. I think like I don't know enough about the inside baseball of like federal judges and like their sentencing guidelines, but it seemed to be that like, okay, maybe she gave like slightly softer sentences to like some sex offenders, and the logic being that like if you prosecuted these people according to say like 1970s laws where people be busted with like magazines or something, like you'd stack the kind of the sentence in accordance with how much material they had. But now, since everyone's all these sickos are on the internet, and they might have like a gigabyte of like child sexual content, but like does that mean then you should like sentence them to like 1,000 years because they have like 500 times more content than the guy in the 70s who had magazines? So she was advocating for like, then they were like, oh, so you're saying like we shouldn't punish it because it's more available? That's how like Alex Jones interpreted it. But I think it's like it seemed like they're reaching, they're doing their thing, and but they're definitely tapping into, they're kind of like, if you're like a kind of MAGA or like QAnon adjacent type person, or you've like been Pizzagate pilled, you're reading between the lines of kind of what they're just, all they got to do is like put this content out there, and then other influencers in the right-wing media sphere are going to like run with it and make all these inferences, and but still you're not going to really get to the bottom of any
And
you know,
really,
they're not
like,
actually going
what
to
it
expose
is,
anything.
I mean, it's tied to the fact that, like, you know, there has been like a huge like shift in a huge cultural shift, like where, you know, like homosexuality like is no longer seen as, you know, being like it, like, you know, Obama was against gay marriage and things like that, you know, like and so the only way that these people can, like, you know, and that's like what a lot of the like anti-woke people, you know, we see these laws being passed now where, like, you know, and it's very bizarre where it's like, you know, they're like, oh, we need family autonomy. And like, yeah, you know, some of the things, like, I think that, like, there's in some cases, like, you know, they might have a point, like, especially like the way they represent things or believe things are, like, you know, little kids being talked to about, like, you know, very adult, like, sexual subjects. Like, obviously that's like wrong or like, you know, unnecessary. But like, you know, it's very weird because they're very much about like parental autonomy, but also they're like, you know, if your kid is trans, like, you're going to be investigated for child abuse or whatever. Like, you know, they can't really like build up the same level of popular support like that, you know, to sort of walk back some of the enfranchisement that like LGBT people have received. So like one way of approaching that is sort of characterizing things that like, you know, there's like books now like for young kids that like mention people having like two dads. Like, I remember it was on Arthur or whatever. So what they want to do basically is to like say that is fundamentally like bringing up sex. Like, doesn't seem to like logically really be the case, like, because, you know, like, if you represent a mom and dad, is that bringing up heterosexual sex? Like, you know, it's a bit like of a
I don't think
area,
I
think that's
that
like
doesn't strike
where,
me as like inherently sexual at all.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where they're going with it, because I think that, you know, they feel that even among like Republicans, you know, they don't like against like gayness itself or being LGBT itself, like people you know, aren't going to get outraged about that, but about like wokeness, you know, like and grooming, they will.
The grooming,
and that's
thing.
like what they're trying to, you know.
Well,
but
I think
that's like
it's
I think
because
what a lot of it has to do with, which is, you know, like pretty like fucked up, and like ultimately like will really end up like helping real like actual pedophiles to hide, because like, you know, no one's a lot like
if everyone's a pedo groomer,
fooled.
nobody is.
Some people will be fooled, but I think that on the whole, people won't be fooled, and it will like shitcoat like, you know, any concern about like actual grooming, which is like a rampant problem in a lot of different institutions.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's getting back to the core of this question. It's like hard to even tell. I haven't paid super close attention to that discourse in Florida, but it's like it's like very hard to like unpack without, I guess, sitting down and reading the entire bill. Like, who's bullshitting here? Like, and who's actually accurately representing, like, what is that? Can we just like define clearly what is this bill? Because like I'm hearing on the right wingers are saying it's got all this crazy shit in it, which like some of it, like if literally true, would be like, yeah, I can see why you wouldn't want to like teach like a second grader that, you know, like talking about, I don't know, like things Alex Jones would scream about like they got dildos in kindergarten class and they're putting on condoms and teaching them how to put them in their butts. I'm sorry, folks. Like, I know this is disgusting, but this is what these sick people are doing.
Yeah, right.
You know, and like in their mind, it's like the blue-haired like TikTok,
right?
Like,
who's like
they them
take
like
your,
teacher
take your
is
kids away from the parents. Say like, come to school, kids, and like put on your dress. And now you're, you know, at home you're Kyle, but here you're Kelly. Like, hey.
Yeah, they're gonna secretly
you know,
like make your kid trans and like not tell you about it, and which is like, if they are doing that is I would say that's maybe like a little bit like, I don't think you want to like hide it from like the parents. That seems a little bit inappropriate, but at the same time, are they really doing that? Like, or is this like a big fever dream that like that's going to happen?
I think that,
like on the other,
a lot of like, you know, like fear, sort of like delusions like occurring. I mean, like, again, like in most cases, there usually is like an example that one could adduce that would be like something that would be objectionable, but like I don't think that like it's truly like the norm, or that like, you know, most of the things that are being represented as like outrageous are outrageous to the extent that they are, or like that there's really like, you know, I think that, you know, it kind of like blends together, like, you know, oh, you know, if like a 16-year-old or a 17-year-old is like trans among her friends or whatever, or something like that. And then like somehow it gets conflated in the conversation and it becomes like, oh, you know, the teachers are like putting your like, you know, 3-year-old in a dress and telling them they're a girl, like, you know, and trying to make them trans or whatever, you know, like I don't think that is like a real like phenomenon, you know, or like
it also, maybe there are certain things, like probably not that extreme, but maybe certain things are happening in like certain school districts around the country, but there are certain school districts where parents are like all about that shit and like want to like their kids to be like taught to be super progressive and stuff. Like, I mean, if you think of like Portland or like a lot of schools in LA, like, or San Francisco, like so it's like not so much in their case, like maybe they're feeling pressure from the parents in like these school districts to like do more like progressive things and like more fully like read them like the Ruth Bader Ginsburg like children's book.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Teach them that Kamala Harris is like a girl boss. Like
down to like the fundamental like epistemological problem, like, you know, in like a you know, like there's like, you know, and an axiological problem as well. Like, yeah, because like definitely in some like communities in America, like it, you know, there is like maybe a certain like moral valence to being like, I mean, we know that this is true. Like there's definitely a moral valence to being gay or something, you know, like it's like good.
Whereas,
like,
and it's very different
maybe,
from
neutral.
like even when like I think we were in high school, it's like very different. Like that has changed.
I mean, when I was
lot.
in high school, like definitely it was not considered to be, or well, at least I mean, I think that there were a lot of people in my school who like, you know, and I was definitely like, you know, like pro like gay rights and everything, but definitely like I admit like I still called everything bad gay, like, you know, as everyone did, you know.
Yeah, in the early 2000s, everybody did that. Like,
yeah.
Without fail. And they really, I mean, they didn't mean it, though, of course, that's no excuse. But it really did just, like that, it just had a vibe. I feel like even, like, I'm not going to say even gay people would say it, because who cares? But, like, you know.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it just, things have changed a lot.
Yeah, but my point is that, like, yeah, you know, like, it's, you know, like I think that for some, especially like for people like who are themselves maybe not gay, like there is like sort of, yeah, you know, I mean, I think that there's maybe like there's a little bit of an anxiety about it, even like in the light of this kind of like polarization or epistemological crisis, you know, like, and it is like the social technology or the technology of social control kind of replicating itself through the behavior of people, because the more like we want to like control our, you know, our children, right? Like we want to make sure that our kids like don't become like the mass shooters and the Nazis, that they become like, you know, slay queens, you know, like and they don't, you know,
or
like,
good allies or something like that.
Exactly, like that's the ultimate nightmare. And on the other side, it's the exact same thing. Like you don't want your kid to be the blue hair SJW. You want them to be Kyle Rittenhouse. You know, like
everyone today kind of does want to indoctrinate their kid. There's just
and everyone always has wanted to indoctrinate their kids.
Yeah.
And like it's really, you know, they're saying now it's child abuse to say that, like, you know, it's good to be gay. From their point of view, like it is, but like, you know, and the people who are like, how dare you call that child abuse? They would consider it like, you know, I mean, a lot of this, maybe not the exact same people, but I don't know. A lot of people maybe believe in their hearts it's child abuse to teach a kid about hell or teach them that God is real, right?
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
So
yeah, a lot of people
you know,
would. Oh yeah.
So
go on Reddit. You'll see.
Yeah,
it.
exactly. So
or
you know,
like you know, brainwashing like little young pioneers in communist countries to like worship Lenin and like the communist system. You know, and shit. And it's like, well, what did American kids in school do in the 50s? Did they all pledge allegiance to the flag every morning and then get like psychologically scarred by like doing duck and cover drills and then be taught about how like free market economics is the greatest thing ever and like the founding fathers all owned slaves, but that was chill? And you know what I mean? Like every country,
and that, like, you know,
they're
the
teaching
Native Americans peacefully gave up all of their land and they, you know, welcomed us here, and now they are happy living on a reservation and just, you know, drinking alcohol and gambling. They're the things they've always loved.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like, you know, the education policy is like all decided in like some smoke-filled room somewhere, but it's a little more distributed than that, and it does vary state to state. But at the same time, it's always being shaped. Like you want, like the goal is to indoctrinate kids. It's
Yes.
just like with good values. Like,
and like
but people
indoctrinate
disagree
just means
on-
teach. Indoctrinate literally means like the same root as doctor. Like it means like to put doctrine,
like
learning
impart a doctrine
into someone. Yeah,
onto
exactly.
somebody. They make it sound so scary.
Yeah, but it's it's like sounds like injecting or something, but what I've kind of been circling around is I think like the big problem is that like people like there's no reciprocity. Like that's what people can't see. Like it comes back to like the Russia thing, like people can't see like how like the point of view of like from the point of view of Russia, like it's laughable for the United States to be like, how dare you? Because it's just like a standard of behavior that like has been established by the United States. Exactly. It's hypocritical. And like, I think that people on like the, liberal left, as it's continually being called, like they can't see like, the, like that argument. They can't see like or like even open themselves at all to like the, worldview of like the other side or like of others. And that like kind of like epistemological like flexibility is like what I feel like is like the only solution. Like the, it's kind of like a like necessity of like the like fucked up like mind war battlefield that we like all technological hellscape that we all like exist on. Like it's you can't like I think that maybe at times in the past I think that it was easier to have like this kind of like maybe epistemological homogeny within like certain groups, but like now like that the world has become smaller, as they say, and I think that type of thing like that's why I'm always like saying like explain to me why you like love Baphomet, explain to me like why it's good to worship Pan or something, because like that's what needs to like not to sound like someone's like debate me. That's not what I'm advocating at all. And I think that's like actually part of the problem in many ways. But like I think that that's the only way that like we're gonna be able to live with each other, is being able to like to be like quote unquote tolerant of like intolerance in some way. I don't know, like, or things that are abhorrent to us, like in a way that perhaps like is relatively new. That might causes us to stretch a little bit like the bones of our respective beliefs and like find a way to like live those beliefs while like allowing others to live there. Basically liberalism. No, but I but I think that
utopia.
No, but I think liberalism is like itself, like that's the problem with like liberalism and secularity. Like it is itself like, the epitome of that, where it creates like a false empty space or like a vacuum of ideology where no ideology, can exist. But, it's always present. It's, there is no such thing as like a vacuum or like, the absence of belief or the absence of ideology or of like, religion. You can't have that, it's always like sort of lurking in the background. So I think that's like the acknowledgement that need like this sort of the marketplace of ideas, like, is not, it can never be neutral. So we need to find a way to like get around that problem. But I don't know. We don't have to fucking figure out solutions. I don't know the solutions, but anyway, that's how I understand the problem. Yeah, don't look to us for solutions to anything, because I certainly don't have them, and I don't want to be responsible for my solutions being bad. But I don't know. Yeah, we have to like get away from the idea of like objectivity and neutrality. My feeling is, take it or leave it. Yeah. We had to get away from this idea of objectivity or neutrality or avoidage of ideology or kind of like an empty idealized space, and realize that our beliefs in many ways like are incommensurable on some points, but figure out a way to maintain flexibility so that we don't have to necessarily compromise our own beliefs, but like, we don't have to compromise others either, so that we can like live with each other and not like strangle each other to death. I don't know.
Engage in a dialectical process. So
something. Yeah. I don't know. But
or whatever. Yeah.
If I told you some secrets, would you say I'm unreal? I could easily love you if you just let me feel. I can't play forever the games I've outgrown, but you're still enchanted sky machines take all the gentle home. Just needing to touch you is so hard to restrain. Just waiting for the time could maybe make me insane. My heart is so hungry, living on patience alone. Please hurry, enchanted sky machines, take all the gentle home. I believe the beginning won't be too far away. The power's getting stronger, I see signs every day. So I'll swallow my yearning and won't let it be shown until the enchanted sky machines take all the gentle home. My desire is a rosebud in the magic design. I can't wait to feel it bloom. They'll be landing anytime. Then when the skeptics are wondering where all the faithful have flown, we'll be on enchanted sky machines. The gentle are going home. We'll be on enchanted sky machines. The gentle are heading home.
Did we want to move on to number 4 now? You want to read that?
Yeah, that's fine. Have you come across Molly Ringwald asks, are you sure it's not Mommy Ringwald or she goes by Molly Ringwald now?
I think she's switched a couple times, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Okay, Molly Ringwald asks, in August 6th, 2021, have you come across Judy Sill at all in your survey of Laurel Canyon? She was our IRRC, if I recall correctly, the first artist signed to Asylum. This Rolling Stone article has a lot of interesting tidbits. She mentions how a guy at her private reform school ran guns to Cuba. Yeah, I think you were listening to some Judy Sill that you sent me.
Yes,
Yeah,
I went on a
listened to
little
it. Sounded pretty
journey.
good. Yeah,
I went on a little sonic journey last
I
night.
like the
this
Vigilante.
morning.
Yeah.
The Vigilante is good.
Yeah.
Really, all of her songs are pretty fantastic. I think so. Yeah, Judy Sill's really interesting. She sort of didn't come up in... It's actually very bizarre that she didn't really come up in Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon at all. Because she was, as Molly Ringwald said, the first client, the first person to be signed by young David Geffen, the godfather of like LA hippie country rock, in the 1970s. The towering Napoleon of chill 70s vibes, etc. And she has a very interesting and kind of tragic life story. But yeah, we hadn't really gotten into it yet, even though she was kind of intersecting with all these other people. I think we talked about both in the Weird Scenes episode and in the Eagles episodes, because they were on the same level. They were on the same label. They were on Asylum. But unlike, the Eagles or Joni Mitchell or Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, she recorded 2 albums and then kind of fell off like in the mid to late 70s and then died in, I believe, 1979. Let me see exactly what she died. So she had a lot of problems with drugs. She's kind of very reminiscent of like Kate Bush in a lot of ways. We talked about Kate Bush in another Q&A episode, right? In terms of like her, she's like a singer-songwriter who has like a very unique like voice, and her lyrics are like very complex and very spiritual and like allegorical, and you get a lot of like Gurdjieffian kind of like Jungian vibes. I think she was very into Carl Jung, and she was like a voracious reader. Yeah, so she had songs like Jesus Was a Crossmaker, The Phoenix, probably The Donor. She had her second album was Heart Food in 1973. She didn't sell very well, when she released these albums. And Oh, she was into theosophy. I see. Wow, she called Geffen a homophobic slur on stage. In around the time of after her second album, Heart Food, she kind of broke off from Geffen in Asylum. Sill's friends have said that she lacked the resilience to cope with poor album sales and bad reviews of her work, and that she was dropped after she refused to perform as an opening act, a task she disliked. According to another source, Geffen pulled support for Heart Food and refused to release any more of her records after Sill, frustrated over what she perceived as his lack of support for her career, publicly referred to him by using a homophobic slur. She either called Geffen fat F-word on stage or referred to his faggoty pink shoes. So he didn't like that.
I see.
So, interesting. And she was going to record in a third album at Michael Nesmith's studios. He was one of the Monkees. And she was abusing drugs again. I think she might have gotten in like a car accident that like fucked her spine up. She got into theosophy. She worked as a cartoonist at an LA animation studio.
Theosophy, of course. I mean, who isn't?
I know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she's definitely very much like into that like woo-woo Laurel Canyon kind of thing. Let's see. Oh, she was affiliated with the Self-Realization Fellowship in Pacific Palisades. So she
is like the iconic like 70s woman like in appearance. Like
she really is almost like a proto Stevie Nicks. And I think the other one was Laura Nyro, who was another woman who was one of the first Geffen people to be signed, and kind of has like a somewhat similar vibe, like very kind of folksy, a little bit witchy, like singer-songwriter. It's interesting, like he had these two artists, and then, but then it wasn't until like Joni Mitchell that like she really caught fire. Yes. Okay. Yeah. He represented her as as Nyra's agent. But anyways, yeah, Judy Sill, she really is a quintessential witchy woman.
Was she a Muslim eventually? I mean, it seems like she married a Tunisian mime.
Oh, Laura Nyro.
But maybe Judy Sill. Not Laura Nyro.
Judy Sill married the Charlie Chaplin impersonator.
Yes,
is that right?
Samir Ben Talib Kamoun. I mean, I guess he could have been a Christian, or he could have not cared about whether she became Muslim. But
yeah, that was shortly before her death. I guess after a series of car accidents and failed surgery for a painful back injury, she struggled with drug addiction and dropped out of the music scene. She died of a drug overdose or acute cocaine and codeine intoxication on November 23rd, 1979, at her apartment on Morrison Street in North Hollywood. The LA coroner ruled her death a suicide, taking into account a note found near her body, but some who knew her have contended the note, which reportedly contained a meditation on rapture, the hereafter, and the innate mystery of life, was not a suicide note, but rather a diary entry or song concept. Her ashes were scattered into the Pacific Ocean after a ceremony organized by a few close friends at the Self-Realization Fellowship in Pacific Palisades. There was no obituary published of her death because she was so obscure by then. So that really kind of a sad ending, because her two albums are really kind of like incredible and like very like pretty excellent and like really sophisticated and everything. And she did have an affair with J.D. Souther, who I heard on like a BBC radio documentary. And of course he was the, running dog with the Eagles. He co-wrote a couple of their songs, and he said when they asked like why wasn't she more, he said he was talking about how brilliant she was, and they asked like, well, why didn't she have more success? And he's like, you've heard the music. Like it's like it's good, but it's like weird, and it's not the most accessible kind of thing. I mean, if you're in the kind of mood or headspace for it, it feels very intimate, and it's like it's very good, but it's not exactly like Take It Easy or even
it's certainly
like,
not Take It Easy,
or even like Joni Mitchell, who had some big like pop hits. But there are some real bangers.
It has a little bit of a Jim Sullivan vibe, but like
definitely, I thought a lot about, especially with their like kind of sad, mysterious end, like later in the 70s, and like how they didn't make it. And she does have a song. I think I sent it to you this morning. It was like the Machine Chariots or something. Oh God, what was it? Enchanted Sky Machines. off her
Right,
first
yes.
album. Yeah, which is like, it's okay because like the good people, right, the gentle people are going to be taken away by the enchanted sky machine. So she, I guess, clearly into UFOs. The song before that is Loping Along Through the Cosmos.
If I told you some secrets, would you say I'm unreal? Yes. Please hurry, enchanted sky machines. Take all the gentle home. I believe in the beginning. Won't be too far away. I believe the beginning. I say, like, you know.
I mean, just like Jim Sullivan. She's like, wants to get taken away by a UFO.
Yeah.
Very interesting. David Crosby and Graham Nash both played on her first album. Some background stuff. But okay, so her early life is kind of weird and interesting. So she grew up, I think she was born in LA, but grew up kind of in Oakland. Her father, Milford Bunn Sill, an importer of exotic animals for use in films, owned a bar in Oakland in which Sill learned to play the piano. But her father died when she was 8, and her mother moved with her and her other siblings to LA, where Onetta, her mom, soon met and married Tom and Jerry animator Kenneth Muse. So this guy was like kind of in kind of the Hollywood world. I guess he was a children's cartoon animator. And I guess like this guy was like an alcoholic and like a huge asshole and was abusive. And I think some people who knew Judy alluded to the fact that maybe he was sexually abusing her because she ran away, I think, when she was like 14 or 15. And she also talked about, Molly Ringwald mentioned this Rolling Stone article from like 1972. And she talks in the interview about the school she had to go to. This is an interesting quote. She was talking about like, my stepfather was dumb and cruel, and it was like unbearable to like live with them. And she says, then I was so miserable, I flipped out in public school and had to go to a private one. All the rejects from public schools went there if they could afford to. 2 innocent little old ladies owned the place, and they didn't know what was going on. We used to have stag movies at recess, get high at lunchtime. There was always good grass around. One of the senior guys ran guns to Cuba, stuff like that. I had a good time there. I was student body president of the rejects. So it's like, wait, what? Like, you were at this like weird private school for like wayward children, but like ones who like had some money, and one of the guys there like ran guns to Cuba. This would have been, because wait, how old is she? Was she born in 1944? Yeah, so this would have been, well, I mean, high school. This would have been what, 1958, 59? So this would have been like, you know, around the time when Castro was like fighting his guerrilla war against Batista. And I forget who I don't know if it was like David Atlee Phillips. I think Barry Seal talked about running guns to Castro. Or no, Frank Sturgis. Frank Sturgis ran guns to Castro in the late 50s when the CIA was kind of like supporting both sides and hedging their bets. And apparently it wasn't clear yet that, you know, Castro was going to embrace Marxism. But she never mentions like what this school is, you know, and like what the name of it is. Because I'd love to, it sounds like one of those sus like wilderness survival schools, right? Where they like lock you in a room and torture you and do all kinds of crazy shit. And also, what the fuck? They played stag films at recess? Like, they played porno to like high school students at recess, and everybody was just smoking grass the whole time. Like, what kind of fucking school is this?
Yeah,
in LA.
Like, I don't know.
Very kind of bizarre.
I don't know.
Let me see if there's anything else.
That sounds, I wonder like how reliable that. Well, I mean, if it's true, it's very strange.
As she kind of goes on, like further into, you know, talking about like her adolescence, you know, she said there were a lot of people at that school who kind of expressed themselves through crime, you know? The alternatives were to be a beatnik, or if you were more of a violent nature, to be a lowrider, a criminal. I liked both of those. I was attracted, my intellect was attracted to deep pursuits, like the beatniks, but another part of me was attracted to danger. I always found myself being the opposite of what every situation called for. If I was around lowriders, I'd come on intellectual. If I was around intellectuals, I'd be a lowrider. After I graduated, I got married to a lowrider from Sherman Oaks, just for something to do, you know? And, okay, so then he said that boy was a Scorpio, very daring. He later got killed going down the Kern River Rapids in a rubber raft on LSD. My second husband, well, that's another story. He's still going down the rapids. We're in the process of getting divorced right now. Then I guess she took some music classes at Valley College after high school. And then, oh, actually, I hadn't seen this. She says, quote, "Then one day I called up this friend, the guy who ran guns to Cuba. He was extremely psychopathic, had no conscience at all. His eyes were always at half-mast, and he didn't care about anything. I admired that in him. I thought it was an attractive quality, because he didn't seem to feel anything. He was impervious to it all. I said, 'Spencer, I'd like to be involved in a crime of some kind, so why don't you fix something up and call me back?' I was thinking along the lines of stealing tires or something, but Spencer introduced me to an armed robber. The idea kind of attracted me. I don't know. I can't explain the hopelessness and helplessness I felt in the air, but it seemed like the thing to do, the right thing. So this guy and me, we began to do armed robberies. We did 6 or 7 liquor stores and filling stations. Sometimes it was quite exciting. We'd go to a motel afterwards and spill the loot out over the bed. This guy fixed downers all the time. I was a little intrigued by the needle, but I didn't know what it was going to lead to later." I guess Judy falls silent for a minute, staring gravely at the palms of her hands resting in her lap. Quote, "I carried a .38. I would rehearse the holdups with it in front of a mirror, try different ways to see which seemed the most treacherous. You heard about that nervous armed robber who said, 'Okay, mother sticker, this is a fuck up.' Well, that was me. I still don't know whether I'd have used the gun or not. Maybe. Well, eventually we got caught. I'd moved in this shack with an AWOL sailor and a friend and a dog, in that seedy area over near the industrial section on Sherman Way in Laurel Canyon. One night I came home, and the police were waiting. They arrested us all. They even busted my dog. I was very numb. I didn't care one way or another. That's why I was doing these robberies, I guess, because my heart was reaching out, trying to get me to care about something. So then I was sent to the state reform school in Ventura, the same one Cheryl Crane went to. Remember Lana Turner's daughter who killed Johnny Stompanato? I was up there 9 months. A lady therapist was very nice to me, although the other inmates, who were mostly younger than me, made my life hellish. They resented me because I'd already been to college and didn't have to go to school like they did, stuff like that. But that lady therapist would just look into my eyes, and she was very, very kind. So I told her the truth, you know. I told her I wanted to get out, and she explained what I would have to do to get out. I would have to develop a conscience. So I tried. I don't know to this day whether I was really doing it or just faking it to get out. I did my best, though, and I got my time cut short. But I got some good out of being in there. I was the assistant to the art teacher and the music teacher, and I was also the church organist. I learned a lot of gospel lyrics, and that was really good for me. I learned a lot of good music while I was in the joint. Okay, so then she got into LSD after she went back to live in the valley, and that was in 1964 when LSD first came out. I tell you, when I first took acid, I didn't know what was happening. I mean, I didn't know what you're supposed to do or feel or anything. I had never had such extreme changes before, you know, laughing and crying all the time. Then I met an acid dealer. I went by his place to cop and ended up moving in with him that same day. We took some LSD together and listened to Gil Evans play Out of the Cool. It was a great romance for a while. So that guy was a bass player, and then she decided I could play bass. So then she started working as a bass player in the valley for a year and a half, just taking acid every single day, and playing bass. And then I think she says she she began to flip out. She was overdoing it. She had a lot of trouble getting back. I was confused all the time. I tried to regain the old state of the first few times I took acid, when I felt like an innocent human being, citizen of Earth, but it was no good. I felt kind of cast out in a sea alone. Around then, I ran into this guy I'd known in college, Bob Harris. When I heard him play the piano, he was so good I felt I should marry him. So I did. Like me, he was an addictive personality, I guess, and he was attracted to heroin. We met some people who shot it, and I was immediately attracted. I knew I was going to become a junkie, and I did. Before long, we were both up to a couple of bags a day. To raise the money for junk, we both pulled various scams, conniving and scheming and lying and tricking people out of their money. Pretty soon, I realized that I could come up with more money by myself, so I went out on my own and started hooking, among other things. As a hooker, I wasn't ever, my heart wasn't in it because I didn't care that much about getting hot at that time. Oh, I feigned excitement and thought up clever schemes to make it go real quick, but all I really cared about was getting that needle in my vein, squeezing off. Well, that went on for years. At one point, I lived with the smack dealer, and I was shooting up to 15 to 20 bags a day. We lived on Central Avenue in downtown L.A., and that was really getting down in the pits, see? at Skid Row. I started getting really desperate, got busted a couple times, went to jail a few times. So she was just like a junkie for like several years.
Yeah.
And then she OD'd a couple times. I think her husband or somebody else died. I think, her brother died of an OD. Or no, he died of a liver infection the same day she OD'd. So then she kicked it after she got arrested, got probation, then started having so in jail, she had a recurrent fantasy about becoming a songwriter, you know. So when I got out, I started doing that. I started writing songs, and they just kept getting better and better. All kinds of improbable things began to happen to me. I was hustling and scuffling to get by. I worked sometimes as a bass player, lived on and off with various friends. At one point, I lived in a 55 Cadillac with 4 other people. We slept in shifts, but it was in the summertime, so it wasn't all that bad. Ha! I had 1 set of clothes and a toothbrush, and that was it. But it felt good, you know? Not to be a fucked up junkie anymore. Also, I got into reading real deep books about religion and the occult. And I could see that I was going to have to write songs that were about those things, you know? At first, I didn't have the psychic defenses to put it all in the right places, but I felt that if I kept going in that direction as hard as I could, it might all work out. And I came to some important inner realizations, trying to make the laws of nature work for me instead of against me. I felt instinctively that it was my duty to throw myself into it all the way. So I did. So then I guess a lot of synchronicities happened, and she got a lot of like lucky breaks to like record in Pat Boone's recording studio and et cetera, et cetera. She met another Scorpio. She really likes talking about meeting Scorpios. And then she tried peyote, and I guess like the peyote made her songwriting better. Okay, so then she meets Geffen eventually. David is the best person in the business for an artist to be involved with. I've seen him be real ruthless for the sake of the artists who work for him. When I first met him, I thought he was some kind of knight in shining armor, you know, but I didn't understand the other things, the things that made him such a ruthless businessman. Sometimes I find it hard to get along with him personally, but I always trust him as far as business stuff goes, and I wouldn't want to be with anyone else. He's not always easy to deal with, especially for someone as crazy as I am. I mean, he may be a devil, but he's our devil.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, I was reading a little bit of this article. I don't think I put it in the workflowy, but it's from the new collection. It's by Matthias Dessa. I guess it's just from 2021, and it's kind of about Judy Sill and just how why she didn't have the fame of some of her label mates, and why she's only kind of gaining more recognition now. And a lot of it has to do with, I think, what kind of she alluded to in her remarks about like not feeling a commitment to being sexy, back then you kind of had to have like sort of a sex appeal, like especially earlier on. But also the author suggests that it had to do actually with kind of not only just like the esoteric nature of her music, but kind of the Christian focus of it. I think is interestingly relates to kind of what we were talking about. They talk about how it was kind of perceived that because she got, as you gave in the narrative, like she got so into kind of like religious music and not like sort of navel gazing type music, but just like
gospel.
Very like epic, sweeping ruminations on like these religious themes. I'll just read from what he said actually. Many former addicts turn to religion on their road to recovery. As explained in a Psychology Today article, both religion and addiction offer a feeling of connection to something higher or bigger than ourselves. Something that feels like a certainty in a world that is beyond control. Needless to say, Sill's biography seems to read at times like a series of unfortunate events and bad decisions feeding into each other. Religion, then, much like drugs before that, must have provided her with a firm footing on life and an appreciation for existence. Sill's music is the sound of discovery, the sound of self-realization and of purpose. Nevertheless, regardless of the rising popularity of songs with religious themes during the 1970s, many still associated negative characteristics with quote-unquote religious music, and this association persists among many today. The link between religion and addiction has been interpreted as an inherent negative danger ever since Karl Marx's infamous "Religion is the opiate of the masses."
Here we go.
This anti-religion attitude has persisted among many in the music world. One of the biggest and most beloved singer-songwriter anthems of the 70s, John Lennon's "Imagine," is explicitly anti-religion. Yeah, that's but I always think of his song, like the song that he wrote when Bob Dylan wrote "You Gotta Serve Somebody." You know, after he kind of got into Christianity, and John Lennon got like so pissed off, and he wrote that song "Serve Yourself" because he was just like outraged at the idea of someone else being religious. Yeah, great.
Be your own god. Yeah,
but yeah,
okay,
exactly.
whatever,
But yeah, even to this day, we are rubbed the wrong way by religious music. Be it Bob Dylan's Saved in the early 80s, Cat Stevens' conversion into Yusuf Islam, or more recently still, Kanye West's embrace of Christianity with Jesus is King, religious messages and sentiment in music have often been repelled, met with a sense of disdain and suspicion by audiences. In a particularly damning article, NME writer Mark Beaumont delivers a condemnation of Christianity in popular music. To succumb to it feels a major step backwards, as if ideological progress never happened. To turn purely Christian, musically, is to deny progress, to champion conformity. The author kind of goes on to talk about how that, you know, it's like incredibly ironic to kind of say like, you know, dismissing religion on the grounds that it's like, you know, it's basically like a puritanical moral judgment about the weakness of the devotee. You know, it's ironic. They're quoting a Stephen T. Asma, but you kind of see like how perhaps at least in this reading, there is kind of this like aversion to her, like this kind of, people kind of recoiled from the spirituality of her music, like in this interesting, like kind of like a, you know, a very ironic, like hypocritical way that was like very sanctimonious and from people who often were like, you know, often their own like spiritual, but I guess, you know, it was. Yeah,
it wasn't witchy enough.
It was too doctrinal. It was
like too Christian. It wasn't satanic enough for them.
Yeah, it wasn't satanic enough. Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and like, hey, fair. I think it holds up well though.
Yeah, it's good.
And when you look at her, like background, like before she started, you know, writing songs, like she's not somebody that grew up in some kind of like Christian bubble and like didn't see the kind of like the dark side of life. If anything, I mean, she went pretty extreme into, I don't know, crime. Like she had some weird CIA like arms smuggler guy, like a teacher how to rob liquor stores, apparently. Some guy named Spencer, you know? And then, you know, took LSD every day for a year and a half and then became a junkie and supported herself with you know, sex work. Like just like she really had like a bumpy ride, and so like let her sing about like Christian stuff, whatever.
It seems like it was kind of this condescending thing of like almost like saying that they were equally bad in some way, you know, to be like a drug addict and then to be religious, you know. So this felt like that's the thing of like, I'm glad you found something that works for you. Like I'm glad, you know, that you find comfort, or you know, it's the same kind of thing of like, oh, it's comforting to them, like, you know, but I don't need that because I, you know, have reality, which is like, you know, whatever John Lennon believed in, imagining or whatever.
And I mean, people like Geffen seem to be all too happy to let them indulge in like that side of the pannish side of their personality.
Yes,
like, you know, I mean, it's good for business if people start to look at themselves like they're a god, I guess up to a point. You know, you can always have a kind of ego meltdown. People can lose perspective, but like, was that not the goal of the kind of the rock industry, particularly going into the 70s? Like it had been well established, I think, by the time, you know, Judy Seal came around in like 1971.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting because like really, like if you think about it, like historically, like religion and music like really go hand in hand like a lot, you know, but obviously there is like always like concern over any kind, like, you know, all different types of, you know, there's a discourse that isn't as present like in contemporary American society around the morality of art. Like, in fact, it's become like a totally like disordered discourse that I wouldn't necessarily say is like better, where it's just like things that are like morally horrific, like are almost like morally like, you know, the axiology almost is that like these things are good like for their own sake because like, you know, it's bad to be moralistic about art or something, you know, so therefore like, you know, having art that's like morally like vacuous and or like morally pernicious is like somehow valorized. I feel like that,
well,
like,
it's a proof of how like free our society is.
Yeah, or something like that. I mean, that's definitely a value of like this, you know, like 60s and 70s music scene for whatever reason. But like, you know, it's weird that like, you know, you have this kind of thing now where like, conventionally speaking, even if there can be like a tension between like the illicitness of music or what really is music or certain types of music, usually like it did have like a, you know, she was inspired by like Beethoven, I think, right? Like usually there
Bach.
was
She really liked Bach a lot.
Right. Yeah, pardon. But yeah, but no,
and I mean, how much of American music in particular, is like modern American music can trace its roots back to like church music, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly with like African American music.
So it's a
like,
weird
in a
thing that
huge
now
way.
it's kind of like a weird unprecedented thing that there's like, I mean, even in Islam, like there's a huge like discourse and controversy around like the legitimacy of music, but they're also like, when music does appear like discursively, like often it's like in a religious context, even though there can be controversy about it. So like, or in an Islamic discourse that is, like internally. So, when the topic of music is addressed, like it's seen as something that has like a certain sort of sacrality. So it's weird that like now, like the sort of pop music standard ideology is that like, religion is like toxic to music. And like, if you believe in, like, if you're religious, get out of here.
Yeah. I feel like even if like Miley did a sort of like a cover of like a country ballad that involved like Christian themes, like some people would be like, this is toxic.
It's fascist, yeah.
something.
It's like she's embracing fascism, yeah.
But like, a song like Jesus Was a Crossmaker it's a pretty cool song. Well, as soon as I heard it, I thought, did she read Nikos Kazantzakis' Last Temptation of Christ? And it turns out, yes, she did, because that's the whole thing, and like both in the book and the movie, is that like when you meet up with Jesus, he's like making crosses for the Romans, and then he grows from there. But it's kind of funny. It's kind of about J.D. Souther being a fuckboy. What is it? It's like he's like a rebel and a heartbreaker, but Jesus was a crossmaker, And when the bridegroom comes, that's another like very old school, like Christian, almost like Will the Circle Be Unbroken kind of song. And like that shit's cool, and she's still very influential today. When I first listened to her like recently, I was like, oh, that's what Jenny Lewis was doing in like the late 2000s. She was just doing like a Judy Sill records, because like she copied her like vocal style. Like, do you remember? I don't know if you ever listened to Rilo Kiley, but but like her solo albums, like kind of after Rilo Kiley, are like very much like, but like not as as I recall, not as deep in terms of the lyricism, and like the spiritual themes, mostly about just like, it was called Acid Tongue. So it was really just about like doing acid. But like she really made her vocals sound extremely like Judy Sill, which is why it's weird that like I never heard of her until much more recently. I would have thought she must have like shouted her out in like interviews or something. It'd be kind of fucked, like weird if she didn't. But a lot of people have covered her work since then. It's like popped up in movies, so now she's like, she has a bit of a following, but I think she's quite good. And
I'll definitely be listening to some more of her.
Sure. It's some good shit. Yeah. The Phoenix, that's a good good song. Like, I'm not as sussed out by Judy Sill. I mean, even though she was obsessed with the occult, I'm like a little bit less sussed out by her than by Kate Bush. I feel like Kate Bush was a little bit more into being like a sus witch and like making a deal with the devil.
Yeah,
and
well, I mean,
Judy Sill.
Yeah,
she's vigilant, like the vigilante.
She was vigilant, and she was she was more in the Sirat al-Mustaqim than Kate Bush. I think that she wasn't all about being a witch per se. I mean, people read like very widely, I guess, at that time, but like I mean, really, there's like layers to stuff. Like you can. There's like, magic that's like pretty benign, like, or just like doesn't really have like a malicious purpose. And then there's like, blah, blah, like, I'm evil, like, like.
No, exactly.
Yeah, there's definitely like a hierarchy there. Like,
and you'll find the whole spectrum in LA, and like probably definitely in the music industry, which she said, I think, was like one of the most evil industries ever, as she described it. She said maybe it's not more evil than other ones, but like as she's seen it, it's full of sickos, and she's right. But so unfortunately, she got the short end of the stick and did not get the glory that she probably deserved.
Yeah. She was a person of the book, and she couldn't be tolerated. She had to go.
We got to find. One day we'll track down Spencer, the weird guy who worked at like the reform school showing pornos to teenagers and was a psychopath and taught her how to rob liquor stores.
Yeah,
I'd love to know who that guy. Whenever we find a Spencer in the future, we got to remember.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. Yeah, interesting. Both Jim Sullivan, and Judy Sill, spiritual musicians, like interested in kind of like UFO or esoteric topics. Maybe ahead of their time in some ways. Like, they both had to go. They both couldn't stick around.
You're right. They did have to go, and once she dropped that F slur on Geffen,
true.
Don't do it. That's like outing Peter Thiel.
According to Wikipedia, she was openly bisexual. So.
Oh yeah, she was. Yeah, she had a lot of like famous like stormy affairs with like lots of different people.
But
at the same time, like just don't. I think it was more the disrespect than anything.
Right. Yes.
Like you don't say that. That
she
in
made fun of
public
his
about
shoes
Geffen.
and his.
She made fun of his shoes.
That was really a bridge too far.
Yeah, he had to get like Warner Communications, Kinney Parking Company agents to come,
Yes.
take her out, and
exactly.
make it look like vague, just like strew some like song lyric sheets around her, and then be like, oh, it was a suicide.
Yeah,
but I don't know, or they just broke her down, and got her trapped in the snare of like opioid addiction, and stuff. So it's a tough road out there.
Soldier of the heart, how'd you get so strong? Soldier of the heart, take me along. Soldier of the heart, how'd you get so true? Soldier of the heart, I'm marching with you. That I feel so cold. My heart is a token. I'd love to give it to you. Flying after a faraway cry, I wandered to a brink so high. Plunging down to the last degree. The next thing I knew, I came to and saw he was carrying me. Soldier of the heart, how'd you get so fine? Soldier of the heart, I wish you were mine. Soldier of the heart, how'd you get so true? Soldier of the heart, I'm marching with you. The battlefield's so cold. What is a token? I long to give it to you. Flames rise with a sword in his hand. We'll march over no man's land. Burn the enemy's stolen throne. I'll carry your gun till it's done. If we could go rolling back home. Soldier of the heart, how'd you get so right? Soldier of the heart, take me to the light. Soldier of the heart, how'd you get so true? Soldier of the heart, I'm marching with you. The battlefield's so cold. Take my promise to warn you. I'm gonna give it to you. Give it to you. Keep ripping through battle-torn skies. Though wounded, I want to cry. This is so long, I guess I'll be leaving you. But when I begin on the end, I saw he was pulling me through. Soldier of the heart, I think it's so strong. Soldier of the heart.
Okay. And that will be question number 5 from Jamie. 1176 from August 8th, 2021. They ask, what's the best known evidence of Otto Skorzeny or Paladin Group's involvement with the Green Berets? Good question. Otto Skorzeny comes up quite a bit, I would say, in our episodes. He's made a lot of cameo appearances.
Yeah.
We haven't done like a dedicated Skorzeny deep dive yet, but think just back in Contra 6, we talked about some of his activities with SS Hauptsturmführer Gerhard Mertens and Merrick's AG. And, of course, which honestly feels like it probably was just another like tentacle sort of company front for the Paladin Group or Die Spinne or Odessa or, all these different names that we have for it, right? But it's kind of describing like the same phenomenon. I mean, maybe there's slight differences between all these different orgs, but I think the crux of what they're asking here is I haven't been able to find the actual article, unfortunately, but Wikipedia says, citation needed, by the way, the Soviet propaganda outlet TASS alleged that Paladin was involved in training U.S. Green Berets for Vietnam missions during the 1960s. So the Soviet news magazine, the Soviet news agency TASS, did publish something like that in the late 60s, saying that that the Paladin Group and people like either Skorzeny himself or people in his orbit were training U.S. Green Berets for combat in Vietnam. Now, I think knowing everything we know about Skorzeny, I would say that sounds about right.
Believable. Yeah, it's definitely not like, an outrageous slander. Like, wasn't there an SS guy who literally became a Green Beret?
Oh, yeah. Well, here's where, because I think we might, I think a full deep dive on Skorzeny, and we're going to get to, when we get back to like the international Nazi underground, the Werwolf network, we'll probably do like a deeper dive on all of his activities, but just to kind of address maybe like the little slice of in this question about the Green Berets specifically, I found a few articles from like pretty mainstreamy, just whatever news websites, talking about these. Now, here's what's interesting, okay? Because the actual Nazis that ended up, coming to the U.S. or under paperclip and things like that, like after World War II, most of those people were kind of done. Those people were sort of under the watchful eye and protection, whatever, of like the CIA, I think, right? Because like paperclip was eventually like a kind of a CIA program, even though they were working obviously with the military, like building rockets and stuff like that. But the Nazis themselves were brought in under this top secret thing because, it was still politically explosive at the end of World War II to like bring actual Nazis. But the U.S. Army found a little loophole with that. So a lot of the people that ended up coming over here and like getting asylum and then joining the Green Berets were people from other countries that were occupied by the Nazis or countries that like had been allied with the Nazis, particularly in Eastern Europe during World War II, and distinguished themselves in like fighting the Soviets. So those people who like, so effectively, it's kind of like the Banderites, right? Like it's like effectively they're Nazis, but they weren't German. And because like that you wouldn't have been able to do this in any kind of like public way if they were actual German Nazis, but like a Lithuanian Nazi, like a Czechoslovak anti-communist, a Polish anti-communist, those guys came in. So there are a few figures like that. A lot of them came over on the Lodge-Philbin Act, which was passed by Congress in 1950, which was named after Massachusetts Senator Henry Cabot Lodge, a real old Boston Brahmin. And this allowed foreign nationals to enlist into the U.S. Army, particularly the Special Forces. So Lodge's intentions were to recruit Eastern Europeans into the Volunteer Freedom Corps, yet some trickled into the ranks of Colonel Banks' new force, the Green Berets. The transition was a gift as they lived rugged lives in post-World War II Europe. Those who enlisted were guaranteed American citizenship if they served honorably for 5 years, a trade-off that served both sides well. The training commissioned their language skills, knowledge of the culture, and physical attributes to traverse the terrain, which earned, quote, the Lodge Boys immediate respect. So let's see, there was one lesser-known Lodge boy named Rudolf G. Horvath. He was a Hungarian refugee who heard Voice of America radio broadcasts in July 1950. He journeyed through Czechoslovakia and discreetly at night through the Russian-controlled territory of Austria. He swam across the Danube River and waved down an American military police chief. So, okay, so this guy fled like the horrors of communist Hungary. I guess there were doubting Thomases in the CIA who objected to like some of this the development of like the Green Berets because they were fearful of their charter. I guess the constant like turf war between like military special forces and CIA kind of, beefing over who gets to do what. So it says here, I'm reading on coffeeordie.com, by the way. The CIA had competition with Banks's new troops as they too pulled from Eastern Europeans, some being Nazi collaborators, to fulfill a secret mission dubbed Operation Bloodstone. The CIA's goal was to inflict political warfare, which ultimately led to broader tasks such as assassinations and sabotage. Considering that their other options were prison or death, it was an offer many Nazis could not refuse, so they did the dirty work to obtain information on the Soviets and Eastern European nations. Yeah, so then this article talks about Lauri Allen Torni, who was a Finnish officer who fought in World War II. So he was a member of the... He
became Larry Thorne.
Larry Thorne.
In Arlington, that he was
exactly.
in the SS. Yeah.
So he's basically like a Green Beret hero. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's funny. You can find articles about him that are just in, Spec Ops magazine.
Like Task and Purpose, soft rep.
An amazing hero who hated communism so much he fought for 3 armies, including the Nazis.
Including the Nazis. He's an elite member of the Finnish Alpine ski troops who fought the Soviets behind enemy lines during the Winter War, using only what they could pack on their backs and the sleds they pulled. So he was a prime candidate to join the best of the best among the German military. I'm seeing here with the Totenkopf skull on his hat and the SS on his collar during World War II. And then next to it, a U.S. Army dress after that. Very cool. So he volunteered in June 1941, right when Barbarossa started. He volunteered and was selected for the Waffen-SS, serving for a year before returning to the Finnish military to fight in the continuation war against the Russians. His methods using guerrilla warfare and deep penetration ops earned him instant notoriety, his unit going so far as to name themselves Detachment Torny. They struck fast with overwhelming precision and escaped before retaliation could be made. The Soviets put a bounty of 3 million Finnish marks on his head, which equates to $65,000, a huge price for one officer. So the Finns awarded him the 144th Knight of Mannerheim Cross, which is equivalent to the Medal of Honor. He bounced between learning advanced sabotage training for a pro-German resistance force in 1945 to his eventual imprisonment after World War II for his Nazi relations. He escaped from prison in December 1948 before the Finnish president pardoned him, a nod to their shared service in Detachment Torny. At age 35 and fighting for 2 armies, Torny boarded a Swedish ship for Venezuela before diverting to the U.S. The Finnish communities in New York aided his transition before he had had enough of his life as a carpenter and enlisted to the U.S. Army under the Lodge Act using the name Larry Thorne. So he ended up getting commissioned as an officer in the 10th Special Forces Group stationed in Bad Tolz, Germany. Interesting. So he was in West Germany. This article mentions a very strange unit that was in West Berlin, where everything they've done is still classified to this day. But Larry Thorne did meet his end because in a lifelong atonement to crush the spread of communism across any battlefield.
Atonement, yeah.
What?
By pursuing one
I'm
of the
sorry,
main Nazi
I failed
goals.
to stop them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what he was atoning for.
Yeah, sorry. It's okay, bro. It's really no big deal. In a lifelong atonement to crush the spread of communism across any battlefield, Thorne deployed to Tin Bien, Vietnam, as a member of the 7th Special Forces Group, A734. On his second tour, he and other Green Berets led unconventional warfare as members of MAC VSOG, operating in South Vietnam and performing air reconnaissance missions into Laos during the fall of 1965. On October 18, 1965, the first MAC VSOG cross-border mission carried Thorne and his team on South Vietnamese Air Force helicopters, but as the mission progressed, the weather and lack of visibility forced Thorne's helicopter into the earth. In 1999, his remains were found and returned to the United States. And then he was buried in Arlington National Cemetery in 2003. Well,
yes, he's the only
you know,
member of the Waffen SS to be interred in Arlington National Cemetery.
Really? Oh,
I
interesting.
believe
I'm
so.
surprised he's the only one.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so I
That's
mean,
the most
also
surprising
what's
thing.
interesting is a lot of these guys that joined the Green Berets sound like some of the very same people that literally kind of set up the original Gladio resistance networks in their home countries. Like this other guy, another lodge boy, Lieutenant Colonel Alfo Martinen, who was Finnish. He led an effort while in the military that hid an enormous cache of weapons and equipment in the event the Soviets invaded. Does that sound familiar? He and his band of loyal officers were considered traitors as their plans and intentions of a guerrilla warfare-style resistance was revealed. The Martinen's men were told to leave the country in 1945 or they would be arrested. Martinen evaded capture, escaped through Sweden, and became part of one of the first groups under the Lodge Act to enter Army Special Forces. So, yeah, so, I mean, that sounds like he was literally doing the Gladio thing and then managed to escape his country before he get kind of arrested for doing it. And, yeah, it goes through a couple other people that, I mean, it's really interesting how a lot of these, like, Nazis ended up serving in Vietnam, doing, like, kind of the really heavy-duty shit that the Green Berets sort of became known for and, like, John Wayne, like, romanticized in that really bad movie about the Green Berets. Yeah, so that they're called White Star teams that conducted covert counterinsurgency operations, often while wearing civilian clothes and backed by the CIA in Laos. And this is also from 1957 to 1962. So like well before the war like properly kicks off, you know, when the U.S. goes in. And then that particular guy who was in the White Star group, Jan Janasik, who was a Czechoslovakian border guard, after he retired, he donned another public service uniform as jail deputy for Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. So you have them going in and being like sheriffs and cops and stuff. Kind of sus. Oh, yeah, here's what... Yeah, this is Bob Charist from Detachment A, Berlin Special Forces Brigade, shed some insight on the little-known unit responsible for, quote, stay-behind, plainclothes missions during the Cold War. Many of the members of the unit were the result of the Lodge Act, including, quote, men like Peter Astalos, who served in the Romanian and German armies during World War II, Martin Urich, who participated in the largest tank battle of World War II at Kursk, and many more. Much of the unit's history is cloaked in secrecy and remains classified. Damn. Yeah. So that's, you know, that's just a short kind of example.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like there is one thing in terms of like the evidence for his involvement in the Green Berets. I think it's very plausible. It's very like believable. Like it's a, you know, I would be almost surprised if like he weren't involved. I mean, there is that book, the Skorzeny Papers. I think that is the one that like fingers Otto Skorzeny as being QJ Wynn, which, you know, is a...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of a,
the QJ Wynn California office.
A debated theory, maybe. Yeah, but yeah, exactly. I think I have the right book in mind. But anyway, this is it's by Ralph P. Gannis, and that author says in 1967, an article appeared in the San Diego Union with the headline "German Army Colonel Set Green Beret Pattern." In the lengthy article written by a reporter named Ray McHugh, Skorzeny is credited as the model upon which U.S. Special Forces, commonly known as Green Berets, were formed. The article gave the highlights of Skorzeny's military accomplishment, but it's the revelation at the end of the article that draws our attention here. Skorzeny stated that his highest compliment came from a U.S. military attaché in Europe who had served in Vietnam. This man told me that the biggest successes of the American Army in Vietnam were based on the training and tactics evolved by my Special Forces. I hope I made some contribution. Vietnam is important to all of us. But again, I don't know like if he included this article in the book or, you know, there's like no real footnote, and I don't think the article is available online. So
I really wish we could get the Soviet source, you know, like the original TASS article.
I mean, it makes sense because he was like a famous Special Forces person, and like, you know, he
trained Egypt, he trained Israel, he absolutely like was running around the world, so it would be almost surprising if he didn't provide training to, especially since, you know, as we just laid out, like there were a lot of former Waffen SS people that were in the ranks of the Green Berets. So that probably knew Skorzeny, or maybe, at some point had crossed paths with him or something. So, it's like highly likely, I think. I see an article here, how Otto Skorzeny, the Nazi who influenced ISIS.
Yeah, great. Right.
I mean, I guess he influenced like Helmut Mertens to give ISIS weapons.
Yeah, and
I don't know if that's what they mean though.
Yeah,
they're talking about
the American
Werewolf
Special Forces who influenced ISIS. Yeah.
Yeah. So, some people. We'll get to this one day soon, but it talks about Skorzeny as a paid consultant in guerrilla warfare. Eventually, it spread to Al Qaeda through the efforts of Skorzeny, his subordinates, and Yasser Arafat. Really? I might need a fact check on that. And then,
what?
of course,
that
he spread his guerrilla warfare tactics to Al Qaeda. It says it spread to Al Qaeda through the efforts of Skorzeny, his subordinates, and Yasser Arafat. I mean, no, there actually might be something to that. Skorzeny was, in effect, a guerrilla warfare consultant for hire to whomever wanted his new tactical creative ideas, including the United States Special Forces. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, why wouldn't they want his skills?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was like he gave them considerable trouble during World War II. So, yeah. I'm looking up this article now to see like what their line is from, into Al Qaeda. Eventually, it spread to Al Qaeda. All right.
Well, I think in a certain type of way, if you think about Al Qaeda as sort of a creation of like the Saudis and like Bill Casey's CIA,
like special forces tactics, like that Skorzeny contributed to.
Well, no, there just as there was like Klaus Barbie kind of advising the cocaine cartels in like the late 70s in South America. I think he's saying that maybe Skorzeny was involved in providing training to maybe some of these like early kind of Al Qaeda types, even though
I mean, I feel
like
like
so
that's
nebulous in the
kind
80s,
of like it would have to be like a second degree influence, because I don't think that there was.
Oh, you're right, because he died in 1975. So no, you're right. Like I think that's where his acolytes come in. That are still around. People like Mertens, and there's a few of them.
Like his tactics have probably been so widely adopted. Like probably like the tactical ideas that apparently were so valuable. His tactical genius was so widely adopted that it probably has spread like to a lot of different.
Well, I'm pretty sure if you looked at like the School of the Americas, the JFK School of Special Warfare, that a lot of the stuff that they have been teaching people for the last few decades is like very heavily inspired by a lot of like Skorzeny stuff. If you think about like the Contras and all that kind of stuff. So I think his influence is like pretty wide, and it's all over South America. It even seeps into like the Muslim world and Africa and all that jazz. So I can't find. It's really hard to find the TASS article from the 60s. Like nobody has bothered to. It's just like today, you can't find Putler's like speeches anywhere translated in English because all he says is lies. So why should we be allowed to see what he says? I want to see what TASS. Because sometimes, their articles like hit pretty well, like when they're talking about like Nazi activities like overseas. It was all dismissed at the time as like typical Soviet propaganda, but they actually often, they were more on point than not.
It's funny. I'm reading this like article. It's just like kind of like a reminiscence about the Battle of the Bulge, I guess, by a veteran. It's literally on battleofthebulge.org. And he's talking about how, Otto Skorzeny had people dressed in American uniforms. I think this came up, just by my searching for like, his training of Americans. But, it's kind of a weird, like a weird precognition of what would eventually happen, where he actually would be training people in the American military, because at the time, they were like trying to infiltrate, and they were like executed by firing squad for doing so. But
exactly.
He was ready to get into that American uniform.
Yeah, Operation Greif.
He was auditioning.
Was what it was. During the Battle of the Bulge, he led a Panzer brigade of German soldiers disguised as American soldiers. But we'll dig more into like Paladin Group and like they're that could definitely be a whole episode, I think. And he's a major susslord.
Yes.
Vigilante watching in the deep of the night. I always find him where his heart is. He's fighting the good fight. He smells the scent of trouble and prepares to leave. He's got his eyes on the horizon, reaching higher. He's got his eyes on the horizon, his boots on his feet. Stranded at the crossroads, it was dismal and gray. When I asked him for directions, he showed me the good way. And if the sky is swirling still, his pace never swerves, because his heart is always faithful, reaching higher. You know his heart is always faithful to the captain he serves. So when the storm of deception is rounding the bend, you know the vigilante's watching, he won't let it in. Though I have seen him climb mountains with so heavy a load, he always lends a helping hand and he walks on the good road. It often makes me wonder how he wins with such ease, but then he keeps his vigil constant, he's aiming to please. So when illusions approach and danger is nigh, you know the vigilante's watching, he won't let it fight the fiercest foe until his forces divide. 'Cause he's the fairest of them all and he chooses the good side. So when the tempters tease and try to make him unsure, you know the fires of war are burning, reaching higher. You know the fires of war are burning, his weapons are pure. So when the clouds of confusion creep into view, you know the vigilante's watching, he won't let him through. I see the vigilante watching in the deep of the night. I always find him where his heart is. He's fighting the good fight. He smells the scent of trouble and prepares to leave. He's got his eyes on the horizon, reaching higher. He's got his eyes on the horizon, his boots on his feet. He's watching 24 hours a day.